That seems to be the short table.
Yeah. June is your short month.
Okay.
We'll be back in-
We got 7 or 6:30. I was like, okay, so I'm staging a coup, but I'm the president. So I'd like to call this meeting for USD 348 Board of Education to order. Can I get approval of the consent agenda? So second, Tony seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
I want to make a different word. It can be our thing. It's gonna be like, yes.
Yes.
So we're going to start with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And straight off to executive session, right? So
Yes.
I move we enter into executive session with Mr. Dorothy and Mr. Brittingham to discuss a student appeal pursuant to the exception relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a student under coma. And the opening meeting will resume in the library at 6:50. Oh, sorry, 6:40. Yeah, 6:40.
Second.
All those in favor say yes. Raise your hand.
Yes.
Yes.
My stamp on it. All right.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Susan, I'm walking into executive session, so.
Is Kelly, was she a planned leave or is she okay? Do we know?
Kelly had soccer.
Oh, okay.
Regional soccer today, so she'll be here by 7, she hopes.
Oh, gotcha.
Wow, we're winning? Really? Cool. Okay. We're gonna. I think what's really bias
the exception relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a student under coma. And the open meeting will resume at, let's say, 6:47.
Second.
All those in favor say yes.
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 I don't like yes. All right, don't sit down. Make a motion that we enter into executive session with Mr. Dorothy and Mr. Wallsmith to discuss a substitute staffing matter at the IC pursuant to the non-elected personnel exemption under coma, and the open meeting will resume at the library. I'll just say 7 at 7 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ottawa. Yeah,
Oh, that's good. That's especially good.
we were just partying with them Friday night for our co-graduation, and then we're like, destroy them. You know, it's all in good,
Nothing's changed,
it's all in
right?
good fun. Thank you,
Oh, you're welcome.
Vice President Harvey, for covering me.
It's about 2 minutes.
So we're on.
Sure. Yep.
So,
Okay. Good deal. I was just glad we didn't do anything dumb like need overtime or PKs or anything, because I'm like, I told them I'd be there by 7, so we need to do this in regulation.
Yep.
I would imagine.
$1 DOR, 6% for new, 8% for renovation.
Okay.
The ACI, or 7.25 for renovation and 6. And 6 for new. And then Paul Senior, their configuration was a little bit different because they had the 40 to 75K up front. They did not. They gave a range. They gave us a range, and I don't have it noted that they specified that the range. I put same range as DLR, CDLR. So 6 and 8 is how I referenced that in my notes.
Okay, perfect.
So 6 and 8 in addition to the
Yeah,
three.
that
Is what-
upfront cost.
yeah, that's if I took notes correctly. But
That's the new.
yeah.
Oh, no, no,
No, reverse.
remodel.
Yeah, higher for reno and lower for new. Yeah,
Thank you for joining us.
no problem. I'm only a good note taker because I can't rely on my own memory.
Kelly, you're at 7.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will go ahead and call this meeting back to order. I just want to thank Vice President Harvey and the rest of the board members for being gracious enough to allow me to be late so I could watch my kid play on home field for the last time. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. First, we have organizational items, parent, family, and community engagement opportunities. If any principals have anything that they would like anyone to be aware of, we're wrapping up the end of the school year, so maybe not as many things right this second, but always want to give that opportunity every month. Okay. Announcements. Any announcements that anyone has? Well, I'll share a few. So if you don't have anything to do this Friday from 4 to 6 p.m., Mr. Dorothy's retirement reception is taking place at the Lumberyard Arts Center. I know he appreciates me bringing that up in this forum. But do want to make sure people know about that. And also opportunity for board members who are able to come and celebrate our awesome staff this Friday morning at the staff appreciation breakfast. That's a time where everybody gets recognized for a number of things. Our culinary students and teacher are preparing the food, which is after school is out for them, which makes that even more awesome that they have agreed to do that. Our new wellness program, there's a challenge going on and there's a deadline coming. So any staff members that are, I can't remember what the deadline is, it might have been today, but check that out. And what else was I going to say? Oh, and Mr. Dorothy might be talking about this more in his superintendent's report, but there was a nice little shout out for Baldwin Schools in US News and World Report recently. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, you might do that. All right, with that, yes.
Staff appreciation breakfast at the high school, yeah?
Yes,
At what time?
it's at 8, isn't it? 8:30?
8:30.
8:30 seems right. I know it's 8 or 8:30. I just can't remember which. Maybe we can send out a confirmation email.
Yes, I can do that.
I have seen one thing about it, but I just didn't have it on my mind. Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else? All right, if not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Chris has moved and Phil has seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And Susan, yep, I saw her. Thank you, Susan. Motion carries 7-0. Before we go to recognition, so this is not standard, but we can do this at any time. I'm going to move that we amend the agenda just to make sure for the record that we have all the recognitions on here. So I move that we amend the recognition portion of the agenda to also include our awesome band students. They have certificates here. So band and choir recognition will go hand in hand. And then also we have outstanding creative welding that we're going to recognize tonight too. Okay, so that is my motion. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, so now we get to do the best part of the meeting, and that is last day of school. That is the recognition time. There we go. I'll do it this way. First up, if you are a part of the 6th or 7th grade band, if you could come forward, that would be terrific.
So we're a little low on numbers this year, it's just Nora.
And
She is crushing it.
well, I'm not surprised by this at all. So there are 2 certificates here that I'm going to give both of them to you after I read them, but I want to make sure they all know what all has happened at Baldwin Junior High with the band. Okay, so the band and Mr. O'Neill, please feel free to step in and add more information or correct information. You're not going to hurt my feelings at all. But they participated at the Baker University Music Festival, right? Yep. So you got to go during the school day, right? To go to that. What instrument did you play? Clarinet. Clarinet. I started at clarinet and then went to bassoon. That was the next chapter, but clarinet's a great instrument. But both the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade band, 6th grade band is one, 7th and 8th grade band is combined together, and both bands received a 1 rating at the Baker University Music Festival, which is incredible. Junior high band is it's a challenging time because sometimes people are switching instruments already and still very much learning. And so Nora, thank you for representing. I'm going to say you're representing the entire junior high, and I'm going to read this certificate. We're all going to clap for you, and also by extension, the band and Mr. O'Neill, and then you can take this back to him, okay? All right. So the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, May 17th, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates the 6th grade band, and then the combined 7th and 8th grade band for their 1 ratings at the Baker University Music Festival. Congratulations, Laura. Thank you very much.
You did really well. I was a little distracted by all the shiny things behind you. those are the hardware things
Oh.
that we received. And for whatever it's worth, those are the high school ones.
Those are the high school ones. Here we go. There they are.
Our 7th and 8th grade band received the highest score. I will project.
Yes.
Should I go over here?
I am no Vanna White, so let's have you and talk.
Because I am. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's, expectations are a little high. Here, you can be Vanna. Our 7th and 8th grade band received the highest rating of any school performing, of any band performing. Our 6th grade band performed received the second highest rating of any band.
Wow.
So that's really cool. So yeah, so nice job being band up here. There's more stuff here.
Thank you for bringing the plaques. That's cool for everybody to be able to see that. Next, switching gears just a little bit. Do we have anybody here from Baldwin Sports Live? That's okay. We're still going to acknowledge them. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, May 17th, we would like to recognize, congratulate, and also thank the Baldwin Sports Live Network. With all the challenges and bummer things that COVID brought, one of the positives was the increase in streaming access for folks to be able to watch things, and Baldwin Sports Live took that to the next level. And they've been broadcasting a variety of different activities and just doing an awesome job. And so the actual award is worded in this way. To Baldwin Sports Live for bringing Bulldogs all across the region and country together through outstanding sports broadcasting services and increasing the visibility of our various programs and student achievements. We appreciate that very much. So let's give them a round of applause and we'll make sure that now we have a ton of choir awards, choir and band, actually. I'm going to go a little bit back and forth. If we have any choir students, actually choir and band, just go ahead and come up, and that way we can kind of do it all together. The first set of awards that were submitted, this is actually for an all-state choir selection. So even if this isn't one of these, I'm going to give these to you guys, you can pass along. But the first section of award recognition is for the Kansas Choral Directors Association Summer All-State Choir Selection. So this is an audition process that happens months in advance. They haven't even done it yet, but they've been selected for it. There's a lot involved with that. And this is above and beyond the regular curriculum that the students do for their classes. So this is an extra. Their teacher, of course, helps them, but a lot of this prep and work is on their own time, so it rightly deserves recognition. But those who were selected for the Summer All-State Choir include Carly Armbruster, Greta Davis, Haley Davis, Lizzie Goodwin. You can get that to your sister. Oh, sorry, no one saw that. Ellie Pittman and Talon Torres. So let's give them a round of applause. Next group we have, this has to do with the regional competition. So for regionals in music, it works a lot like sports. If that's more of your knowledge base, you compete in regionals, and if you make a 1, then you get to advance to state. So this is our regional choir choral recognition. For our silver choir, this award. You're in concert choir, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this to you. Oh, you did perform for them. That's right. Yes, thank you. So the silver choir are our tenor and bass voices, and they received a 2, which is an excellent rating at regional. So I'm going to hand that to you. Our other stack of 2s at regional, which again, 2 means excellent. So want to make sure and note that. Carly Armbruster with a vocal solo. Vince Evans received a 2 for a vocal solo. Jillian McLaren received a 2 for a vocal solo. Bailey Smith received a 2 for a vocal solo. Olivia Todd received a 2 for her vocal solo. Talon Torres received a 2 and as well as Hannah Webb. So these were all solos who received an excellent rating 2 at regionals. So I'm going to hand that to the stack. All right. So let's give that a round of applause. Then for those groups who receive a 1, which is an outstanding rating, then those groups or individuals get to advance to state. So we're still in choir world, vocal world for right now. Our purple choir, which are our higher voices, that as I think, nobody's here for that. But our purple choir actually at regionals received a 1 and went on to state. I'm going to hand that to you. Our a cappella choir, which both of these individuals are in, Lily Breckheisen is also a member of that, also received a 1 and went on to state. There we go. So that group, and then our vocal soloist, Riley Smith, received a 1 and got to participate at state. So let's give them a round of applause. Zach more in a minute. Now we're going to switch gears to band. Okay, so instruments, and Mr. O'Neill can talk knowledgeably about those, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute too. Don't let me forget. But for band, I'm going to start with our small ensemble. That way you guys can hand off those and then I'll bring you back up again, okay? So this is, now we're talking about state, all right? These are the kids who qualified for state. We're going to start with groups and then move to solos. So for our small ensemble, this is a clarinet trio. That clarinet trio consisted of Sierra Breedlove, Maddie Hargett, and Kate Welch. So those 3 are rocking the trio of a clarinet, and they received a 1 at state, which is awesome. For our low brass ensemble, they also received a 1 rating. This included Wyatt Bathke, Jack Boyle, Lily Breedlove, Hunter Kaufman, Luke Hayes, Dylan Jones, who I believe just began a new instrument for that one.
He helped us out.
Yeah. He's in the stack. Eric Lederer, Ashton Spencer. This is still low brass ensemble. Caden Stevens, Ben White, and that is our low brass ensemble receiving a 1 at state. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, moving on to percussion, and I actually got to watch this one, and I also want to. Mr. O'Neill also won't like he actually wrote and composed the piece that this group, the percussion ensemble, played at state. Which, how cool is that? They didn't just get a 1, but they got a 1 with an original composition from Mr. O'Neill, and that you just don't get that everywhere. I can't emphasize how neat that is for
It's
our school.
actually like the worst form of cheating because I can just change it. Oh, that's too hard for you? Okay, I wrote it.
You do not have to give insider trade secrets.
I can go back in time and take that back.
It's a great accomplishment, and not everyone composed. So, I mean, I've known a lot of great teachers that aren't able to compose. So it's a great gift, and our students are very lucky. But our percussion ensemble that received a 1 include Wyatt Bathke, Reagan Bosch, Jack Boyle, Lily Breedlove, Sierra Breedlove, Levi Calhoun, Grayson Caulfield, Maddie Hargett, Luke Hayes, Casper Nemeth, Nasio Sodden, Ashton Spencer, and Emily Taylor, who had this little flute thing happening. It was amazing. So that group got a 1 as well. Let's give them a round of applause. Still on band instrumentalists, now moving into solos. So for the individual who received a 1 rating on the euphonium is Mr. Wyatt Bathke, a 1 at state, big deal. Sierra Breedlove received a 1 for her clarinet solo at state, big deal. And Eric Lederer received a 1 for his trombone solo at state. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay. Vocalists, you can come back up now. I wanted to give you a moment. So now here are their state awards, and thank you for being here tonight, Lily and Zach. Okay, so these are for our state qualifiers. I'm going to just read off those names. This includes our a cappella group. So Carly Armbruster, Lily Breckheisen, Vince Evans, Mr. Zach Goodwin, who, as he mentioned, served in a number of choirs, helped out, and also was the lead in our fall musical. So there's been tons of vocal leadership happening all year for this one. Sergey Hopkinson, Judah Olson, Abby Patterson, Micah Reynolds, Ella Scobie, Bailey Smith, Talon Torres, Jade Venable, and Creighton Walters. We're all qualifiers there. Put that here. All right. And now moving on to our groups and individuals vocally who got a 1 at state. Okay. First of all, our Baldwin concert choir. So this is the audition group. These females, males, all together received a 1. So hard to do. The larger the group, I think the harder it is to get a 1 because matching, it's just so much harder. So when you have a great big group of kids and they get a 1, it's a huge deal. So on behalf of that, we're going to recognize excellence for concert choir. Lily and Zach are both members of that as well. So congratulations. Our purple choir, these are our treble voices. They also received a 1 at state. This included Allie Darnell, Ebony Gerard, Lizzie Goodwin, Tatum Davidson, Greta Davis, Allie George, Haley George, Sarah Heifner, Jillian McLaren, Ellie Pittman, Blue Rector, Emma Rowland, Olivia Todd, Liz Underwood, and Hannah Webb. Also received a 1 for their group pieces at state. They performed 2. Again, large group, the larger the group, the harder it is. They also received a 1. Our vocal soloist representing Baldwin was Riley Smith at state. She also received a 1. Okay, so before I conclude the music stuff, I just also want to compliment Miss Naughton and Mr. O'Neill. Miss Naughton just had a baby. She's been gone a lot over the spring, and I'm so glad, Katie, you're here. Miss Jacobson from elementary. As a parent and as a board member, I cannot say enough. I don't even know how to put it into words how blown away I've been and impressed and humbled by the amount of collaboration that I've seen among our staff all the way through. It makes for better programming. You guys have covered each other when you needed covering. I've never seen an ounce of resentment about that, only willingness and eagerness, because helping each other out is good for kids. It makes me emotional because it's happened all year long, and I'm always like noticing these things like, okay, that person just went out of their way to do them a solid, just because it's good for kids when we do that. And so I want to, on behalf of the board, I want to thank you guys just for that degree of professionalism and also just investment in the kids, because what works here, it carries them all the way through. So thank you all for that. It's been awesome. Okay. I'm blaming it on graduation carryover emotions. Okay. The next one I would like to recognize is to AJ Osborne and family. Do we have anybody representing them? Oh, yeah, come on up. Mr. Walsmith is gonna. Alan, got it. Would you please come up so that we can make a big fuss over you. Yes.
That's good. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Walsmith, could you talk a little bit about how this is going? This is a curriculum donation. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of this? It's a generous donation, but I want everybody to have the benefit of how that's going to touch students.
Yeah, so the Osborne family, after their generous donation, asked it to be used for elementary students' STEM projects. So this will be put into a fund that our teachers will decide how best to utilize, but it has to be STEM related with their project-based learning. So we're publicly want to thank the family for the donation and ensure that when we put to great use, our students will definitely get it.
So do you guys know what STEM is? Do you know what that means? And this is not a test. Because it's like really cool that your family did that. So STEM, so S, it means science. Do you guys like science? What about math? Do you like math? Yes. So all of those things, like doing something so nice like this, it helps other kids be excited about those things too.
So that's really awesome. So I'm now I'll do the formal part, okay? All right. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, May 17th, 2022, the Board of Education, so that's all of us. I just was the one that's not it that has to do the talking. Okay? But this is for all of us, all right? We would like to recognize, congratulate, and thank the Osborne family for this generous donation that funds STEM activities for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade curriculum. Thank you very much. Let's please give them a round of applause. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
There we go. Good thing my dad taught me how to box. Thank you guys very, very much. We appreciate you coming tonight. Anything else? Thank you. Oh, there you go. That would be neat. You can keep it. No. You should get a picture taken with it too. Yeah, you'll get a picture taken and you can remember it. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stick around. We have lots of fun.
That's my rod.
Thank you very, very much. All right, everybody. Last but not least, this was the other amendment to the agenda. But I reached out to Mr. Harmon. So Mr. Harmon has done all sorts of things for the district for so many years, and it's been on my list. There's so many cool things happening over in that shop all the time. I reached out to him and asked if he had some students that he would like to recognize. I kind of had a feeling he did. And that's why we amended the agenda to include outstanding creative welding. Gentlemen, would you mind coming up here so I can present your awards? So this is Ashton and Blake, and what we are recognizing them for tonight. And Mr. Harmon actually sent some pictures along of things that you guys have done. And that is my fault. I did not get it in time so that we could put it up here, but I will send those along to the board members. That's completely my fault. But they're being recognized tonight for outstanding and creative welding / art project for the Performing Arts Center. And I know, Ashton, you just received a really neat scholarship from the Memorial Fund, and you're going to continue on with that. Where?
MWI down in the Bay.
Very cool. Very cool. And Blake, tell me about your plans after. Not sure. Okay, that's okay. Well, you hear things that word on the street, so I thought I would just confirm. But the thing is so I don't know if you guys know this or not, but when faced with the choice in high school of whether to take, they used to call it home ec or welding, I opted for welding. So I know I'm not great at it, all right? I don't do it currently, but I remember that it's not easy. It's not like just anybody can pick it up and weld, make the beam and then actually like make things out of it. So I know it's a hard skill to have, and we need people who have these skills. I want to make sure we're recognizing that stuff is going on in our school, just like all kinds of other things are going on too. And it's important and it's valued. Now, I'm also going to tell you that my husband wishes that I would have taken the home ec class. Okay? But I chose welding because I thought it was interesting, and it is hard. It's a really hard thing to do. So we wanted to recognize you for your efforts and also for the ways that you contributed to the school under the direction of Mr. Harmon. We appreciate you being here tonight too. So on behalf of the board, the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. So on this day, May 17th, we would like to recognize and congratulate you, Ashton Wood, and Blake O'Rourke for their outstanding and creative welding for our school and for your future. So thank you very much. Let's give this. Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes our recognitions. We'll make sure that the certificates get where they need to go. Appreciate you coming. If you are not here for the rest of the meeting, this is a time you can slip out and we won't hold it against you, but you're also welcome to stay for the rest of our business. All right. Next up is the educational program highlight. Ms. Jacobson has been patiently waiting. We're going to talk more about music, and if anybody knows how to talk about that, it is her. So,
I do enjoy talking.
yes, and you're good at it. So thank you for joining us tonight and for talking to us about your program.
So I was just asked to highlight some of the things going on here at the IC. I do also teach at the high school for the guitar class, and I direct the high school musical, but I was asked to really highlight what's going on here at the IC because they're doing a lot of really cool things. So this year we actually got to have programs again, which was like a huge deal because it meant every single grade, 3rd through 5th, that was their first program here with me because of COVID canceling things and all that stuff. So my 5th graders were actually 3rd graders prepping a program that was supposed to happen right after spring break, and they just never got to do it. So our 3rd graders put on a very sweet musical called A Place in the Christmas Choir about Happy the Hound Dog, who can't sing very well, but really wants to be a part of Santa's choir. And the whole time they're just trying to find a place for this hound dog so that he can sing. And it sends this wonderful message of not only can everybody sing, but everybody has a place and they belong. And so it just has this really sweet message attached to it. The 4th graders put on a wonderful program about the history of jazz music called We Has Jazz that went through the history of that. And our 5th graders put on a musical called Go West about the gold rush and the westward expansion of the United States. In all 3, I like to try to make it as much like a musical as possible and teach them skills like speaking into a microphone and memorizing lines and music and things of that nature, being expressive when you sing. And our 5th graders, we even took it a step further and they actually auditioned for their parts in front of their peers so that they kind of got a feeling of thing in case they're interested in doing that in the secondary level. We also have a 4th and 5th grade choir. I have been petitioned by the 3rd graders to let them join. I do not have space in my classroom. We are 50 singers strong with just 4th and 5th grade. They had a huge shindig the other day to celebrate the end of the year. They were lining and karaokeing their hearts out, and there was popcorn on the floor everywhere. It was a great time. They had a total blast, and they've accomplished a lot this semester. They've been singing in anywhere from 1 to 3 parts in their music, which is a big deal for this age group. And they loved participating in the choral festival that's district-wide. So it's 4th through 12th grade. And one of their highlights was getting to sing Why Not with all of the older singers. And they just absolutely loved it. And you could tell that they just absolutely want to stick with it as they travel into the secondary level. We were able to send 12 kids to district choir, which is teacher selected. So I select those students and they learn music, and then they get to go extracurricularly on a weekend at like 6 in the morning to Topeka to go sing with kids from all over the district. And then we had a lot of students audition for state choirs. And so we had 6 students that made the KMEA state choir and 1 student who made the KCDA state choir. So the KMEA one was 3rd through 5th grade. And for 3 of our 6 kids, that was their 2nd year making that choir, which was a big deal. And then for the KCDA choir, that's actually 5th through 9th. And so that particular student was the first one from our school to ever audition for and make that particular choir, because at this age, they're the youngest. So it's less likely that they're going to be able to do that. And they did an absolutely wonderful job with that. So they've just been an absolute joy to have this year. We also had Instrument Explorers this year, which was a new extracurricular available for 5th graders who are interested in kind of exploring instrumentation. And so they got to put on some performances. They performed for Veterans Day virtually. They performed at the 5th grade program. And the coolest project they did was this semester, they actually took a book called Another that has no words, it's only pictures. And they looked at the pictures, composed their own music, recorded that music, and then we put it together in a slideshow that's going to be shown for the end of year talent show that I think just turned out so cool. And I'm so proud of all of the work that they put into it. So they've just also been a total joy to have. They loved coming in, hearing guest speakers come in to talk about these instruments that they're phenomenal at. They love trying out mouthpieces, and I just know that they're going to be really great musicians when they hit band in the secondary level. So that's kind of what's going on at the IC. We're hanging. We love music. They love playing games. It's a blast. Most of them would probably tell you their favorite part of my classroom was the solfege's sus board that had the Among Us characters on it. They were very sad when I took it down today. So, but yeah, so that's what's going on at the IC. So
awesome. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment that had the opportunity to go to several of these events this year, and it has been incredible to see the kids performing again, and has really meant a lot to the community as a whole to be
Mhm.
back in the PC and showcase that beautiful building, and also our wonderful kids and their amazing voices and efforts. So
Yeah.
thank you for putting us on.
Well, and some of our 4th and 5th graders were even in the high school musical this year for the 10-year anniversary. So that was a whole different experience.
Well, and that's related to what I said before, what you and Stuart, and Ray- you work up with the students, so you're not just 3 through 5. So it carries those relationships through, and vice versa. They're not just the high, so you have all these beautiful ways of overlap, but it only works if the people involved are who they are. I mean, there's no turf wars. It's just let's make cool music and do what's awesome for our students. And you're a big part of that, Ms. Jacobson. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, that takes care of our recognition time. I did not receive any letters from our students this month. So with that, we will move on to public comment. Do we have anyone here tonight to make public comment? No one signed in? Okay. All right, then we will move on to our financial report.
He's struggling. So we started with 3 initial contractor bids. 2 of them. That is asphalt. The other being Sunflower Paving. Paving came in with lowest bid of $135.09 with a couple different options. Option A was to eliminate some work on sidewalks, which would save about $11,000. Option B was to do some additional work, which I think we're going to recommend that we do not do it this time, just for the expense. We had a total budget originally of $130,000. We did have some expenses out of that budget, about $20,000, but we do have some room to continue to move forward if that's what you approve. So, any questions on that?
When was the last time that we did that? When it wasn't at the high school, it was here. It was here.
It was here at the high school
Yeah,
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the PC before that. Yeah. So just to be clear, your recommendation is option A with cutting off some of that sidewalk
Yeah,
work,
so
right?
from 135, we're gonna go down to about 125, basically.
So if we are okay with that recommendation, unless there are questions, we would need a motion for approval.
It was Sunflower.
That's correct.
So
I move that we accept the recommendation for the high school paving.
Is there a second?
sure, sorry.
That was cognitive dissonance. We'll go with the verb. Tony has moved and Phil has seconded that we move forward. We accept the bid as presented, the recommended bid. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 7-0 for the high school pavement repair bid. Thank you. All right. Now we will move on to administrative reports. First up is Ann Moff, State Board of Education. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight.
So just a couple of things. Ann has been our representative for a number of years now. And I'll let you say what that time is if you want to. But Ann has been our representative for our area for quite a
6
while.
years.
And Ann has come here before. She tries to make it to different school boards in her area and make their meetings to kind of talk or ask or answer questions for you. And so we're glad to have her this evening to kind of talk with us a little bit. And
Thank you guys for having me. Good to see Tony again. I'm going to go over some legislative stuff, which we've seen the sausage made, and there's a little bit laying before you tonight. And congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
I've been retired 20 years and I can't figure out if I do it really well or I really suck at it. But anyway, I've decided it's getting to do what you want, when you want to do it, and it's all good. So enjoy that. I also noticed that Baldwin was up for accreditation and it was recommended for fully accredited. So good for you guys. I can't imagine what it's been like to be in your shoes the last couple of years. I mean, I get to do the big picture stuff, but you guys really have to manage in the muck. And so I just want to thank you for your service and let you know, I think most of you know how to get hold of me. Some of you may get my newsletter. If not, and you'd like to get it, let me know and I'll make sure you get that, because you'll find out first if there's something new coming up. I understand one of the things you wanted to talk about was 2567. Now the governor signed it, so this is law, going to be law. So thought we might wander through some of this. And the reason this is so important is they really wanted to do, I don't know, they wanted to run everything. They wanted to run the courts, they wanted to run the cities, the counties, the school boards, the state board. They just wanted to run everything this year. And a lot of, when you mix a funding bill with policy, then the governor can't really line item veto any of it. So we got this mix of funding, which was really good. The funding part was, but the policy stuff, I mean, there's some stuff here that the state board will deal with, but a lot of it is stuff that you guys are going to have to deal with. And it's not going to be any fun because there's a lot of reporting and stuff that's just going to take a lot of time. Craig Noonswander did this. He's our new Dale dentist. And the thing I like about it is that it will tell you what date these different policies go into effect and who's responsible for it. So if it says USD there, that's you guys. So those are the ones you really want to pay attention to. So I'll just walk through some of these. Section 2 is the mental health intervention, looking at some mental health things. And I have to tell you, I'm on the student voice committee for the state board. So I spend as much time as I can reaching out and going to question. What's one thing students are dealing with that adults need to pay more attention to? And what do you think the number one answer is? Across the board, everywhere I go.
Mental health.
Mental health, stress, you know, they'll express it in different ways, but that's the number one thing kids are dealing with. I was really noted, I was at a college prep class at Lawrence Free State, and Dr. Lewis and the principal were there, and I asked the kids what was the number one thing. They said stress. And the Dr. Lewis is going like this, like they said, they thought when we came back this year that it would just be back to normal, but it's not normal, and the kids said we still had trouble adjusting. So anything in here on mental health, I'm all about. It's going to be great. Appropriations, they fully funded again and again. And next year we'll get to the point where they have to do add to it for inflation. But we got the mentor teacher program, professional development, school safety and security. That's actually $5 million because I think the schools have to put in some matching funds there. Got CTE transportation back. I really like that. Money for national board certified teachers, and $3 million more. That's not just $3 million, but $3 million more for the mental health intervention team pilot. It's not really much of a pilot anymore. It's now pretty much full-blown program. I don't know if you guys take advantage of that here, the mental health pilot.
We have not.
Man, if you don't look into it, I mean, they will provide money to have counselors and mental health services right in your schools, so kids don't have to leave to get them.
We have a county sales tax,
which pays for that too.
That's part of the same.
So if there's anything you can supplement with, take a look at it because it's a really good one. The virtual math thing, you got to love it when the legislature comes up with these programs. They think they know how to teach things better than you guys know how to teach them. But somebody wanted us to require Math Nation for every school to do it, and you pay for it. Well, we had some pretty good lobbyists there, and I really have to hand it to Ben Jones and Dina Horst for the great job they did for the state board, really working behind the scenes to go, you guys really don't want to do a mandatory thing because we're the state board and we're just going to say thank you, but no thank you, because that's our purview. So what they did was, I think a better option is they're going to make money available for a program which is not Math Nation, but the way they described it in the law, I think the only one in the land that matches the description is Math Nation. So anyway, they're making it optional, and they're gonna pay for it if you wanna use it. Now, we have to let out a bid, and that's because of the state process, gonna take a little while, but we're hoping that something will be available by next semester, second semester of this coming year. So if that's something that you wanna look into, that will be an option for you. Somehow they've jumped clear over the fact that we'd already worked with the legislature on how to do reading better and handle dyslexia. Remember, we had the big dyslexia thing, and we've already, required the schools to move towards structured literacy and do more screening and all that. But hey, it's an election year, so anything can show up in a bill. But there's some requirements there for reading program, trying to get kids on track for third grade, which is something we all want. Section 7, the one at the bottom of the first page there, allowing school districts to give kids credit for things they do in alternative ways, like outside of school. You guys have been able to do that for years, okay, like since 2005. I mean, if you wanted to give a PE credit for football, you can do that. If some kid goes to 4-H state and wins a speech thing and they met the standards, you can give them a credit in speech. You've been able to do that for a very long time. So this is one we're really going to have to take a look at this summer and see if we're going to comply with it, because it has a lot of bureaucracy built into it. And hey, you can just do it now without any bureaucracy. So we may just say thank you, but no thank you. We're just going to let them do what they've been able to do for a very long time. Section 9, this is the open borders thing. I think that's that one. No, or in section 16, they did include the open borders thing in there, where other kids can come in, but you'll have to talk to your KASB people, because I'm not sure what the workaround is, but I think you can manage the capacity count to where you don't get hurt too bad. You can't manage how many kids are going to be in your building. The one thing they did do though, and it's over on the next page, section 17, they used to have a rule that if a kid lived within a certain distance of their school, you couldn't go get them from another district. They took all that away. It's going to be, go get your best football player from the next district if you want. That's probably what that's going to be. So anyway, open borders will be in effect. I'm not sure that's this year. That's 24-25 school year. Yeah, it'll be a little bit yet. Let's see, section 11. Oh, that just means that CASHA people have to report abuse. Section 12 is the needs assessment, which they talked a lot about this year. In other words, you guys have to meet some requirements for using your needs assessment in your budget. Section 14 is about part-time enrollment. So homeschoolers and private schoolers could come to your district for certain classes. I do understand though they have to be enrolled by September 20th, so you do get the funding for that, even if it's a part of a day. The virtual school thing, do you guys do virtual school? Okay, so they did do some things, I think, to try to make it better, increase the funding for virtual school, which hadn't been done in a long time. But they also were twiddling around with how you count the graduation rate. And it's like if a kid comes to you and they're already behind to graduation, you can take them and it won't count against your graduation rate for KISA. I can tell you, we're not going to follow that one. They're not going to tell us how to do KISA. So anyway, you can scratch that part of it, I'm pretty sure. But on the whole, I think they were trying to really help with virtual schools. They did expand in section 21 the scholarship program for private school vouchers. It could have been worse though, could have been worse. Section 24, that's just a lot of reporting that we have to do on where kids are. They're trying to prove that schools are failing kids, so more data. Bond and interest, I'm not sure what that is. You'll have to ask Craig or somebody at KSB because I'm not the money lady. Section 27, Representative Highland's wife got all in the twist about these surveys we do, communities that care surveys and those kind of things. So they put in some requirements that you have to notify parents so far ahead that you're going to be doing this. At first, they took out the waiver that we had in there for psychological tests. Like if you had a kid in front of you who was suicidal, you couldn't give them a test. But finally, at the end of the time, they removed that. So now psychology or school counselors or psychologists have a kid they think needs a test. They have to try to reach the parent, but if they can't reach them, they can go ahead and do whatever appropriate tests they think are needed. So good news, you got money this year and everything we asked for, just about, even some of the extra things the state board asked for last summer for mentoring and that kind of thing. So that's all good. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, well, there are a couple other things in there. There's one, the 2664, there were some other bills passed that has to do with computer science. Starting, I think, 23-24 school year, you have to be offering some kind of computer science class. But the guy who wrote the bill, nobody on the committee really knows what computer science is. They just got told by business, you guys need to be doing more with this. So anyway, there's a group of us going to meet next week and try to figure out what classes qualify for computer science. So I think we need a list. We can't just have everybody guessing about it and see what that is. The governor did veto Senate Bill 34, which was the one on immunizations. There were a couple bills out there that just tried to do away with school immunizations, and she vetoed all that. So that's a good thing. And she also vetoed, and I think it stuck, the Parents' Bill of Rights. So you're not going to have your teachers spending egots of hours trying to load up stuff on the internet that parents can pretty much access anyway. Also wanted to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do with teachers leaving the profession. You know, trying to, I don't know if you guys are having a problem with it, but you probably haven't got to the point yet where teachers actually have to declare, have you? So there's time yet. I know we lost over a fourth of the superintendents are resigning or moving or doing something else next year. So it wouldn't surprise me if we have the same situation with teachers, particularly. I mean, they've been under a lot of stress too, and a lot of bad press for no good reason. But anyway, a few years ago, you might remember we did a blue ribbon study on teacher retention and recruitment. And there were a lot of things in there for the legislature to do, which they did. I mean, even though it took a court order, they upped the money. And for the state board to do, which we've tried to do in finding some alternative routes into teaching. But there were also a number of things on there that local boards could do. And if you guys haven't looked at that, I would. We did do an elementary pilot and a special ed pilot. And the elementary pilot didn't really produce, it's kind of like, do you know what the transition to teaching program is? Where if you have a degree, you can start teaching and work on, you know, your pedagogy while you do it. We tried that with elementary and it wasn't very successful, but we tried it with special ed and that was very successful. And also the program we had with paras to teaching, where paras a lot of times they have to work, you know, so they can work and be a para and also get their training and actually turn that into a bachelor's degree with a teaching license. They've had over 100 people do that down at Wichita State. So that's a very popular program. But we are working on a new, trying to do another pilot for elementary, trying to get more people into elementary school. The people who have bachelor's degrees but didn't have that licensure. We also encourage schools to grow your own. And if you don't have a career pathway for teaching, I would encourage you to get one. Do you have one?
Yes.
Great. And I hope when they graduate as seniors, you're offering them a job in 4 years. That's 501 does that. They hand them a contract and say, we will hire you in 4 years when you get that degree, and try to get them nailed down to come back. But, you know, actually retention is the new recruitment. You know, teachers don't just leave for money. They leave for a lot of other reasons. And the only people that can address that is you guys. How you treat them. Everybody wants to be valued. And that is your biggest recruitment tool right now. The state board, really, our priorities are the same now as they were a few years ago. A lot of things got upended during COVID. And we know that. We're spending a huge amount of time, though, trying to make sure you guys get your ESSER money. I don't know. Have you already requested all your ESSER too?
I think we're still spending out some of it, but
yeah,
we're spending our ESSER too. Yeah.
And I read today that the feds are considering extending this whole thing another 18 months. I hope that happens beyond 2024, which would be a really good thing. We put a pause on KISA during COVID. I don't know if you guys took advantage of that, but We're supporting strong academics and kindergarten readiness and social emotional growth and graduation rates, in particular emphasis on post-secondary success. The kids, after they leave here, I mean, you know, we put an emphasis on graduation rates, but you could have 100% graduation rate, you know, all you have to do is graduate them. But that's why we have this requirement for post-secondary success, because if you let them go without proper training, then they're not going to do anything after high school, or they won't be prepared for that. So that's why we watch what happens to the kids first couple of years after high school. Biggest project right now is graduation requirements. You might have read a little bit about that. We haven't done anything with graduation requirements in decades. And we thought if we're really going to try to individualize instruction, we should also try to make our graduation requirements a little more flexible for kids who know what kind of path they're on, to tailor their high school experience to that. A lot of discussion about a diploma plus, where in order to get out of high school, not only to have, I think we'll probably stick with 21 credits on our side, because every school district out there has more than 21 anyway. Try to add to it what we call a post-secondary marketable experience, either an internship or college hours or something like that, that really helps the high school student be prepared to go to work or go to college after high school. We got our preliminary report this month about, I don't know, did you share that with the board? Maybe you haven't seen it. We have a preliminary report from the committee about how they want us to structure those 21 credits. And we played around a little bit with that, like going down half credit on PE and adding in financial literacy for a semester. And we didn't make computer science a requirement for graduation like the legislature wanted, but we put it in a category where it could be a credit you obtain as a core credit for graduation, but in a different category. Next month, we're going to start working with the tribes on Native American education. And I'm pretty excited about that, actually. I mean, I know that the commissioner's comments were the thing that drove it, but it's something we've really been needing to address for a very long time. So no matter what started the discussion, it's going to be really good. And I think people will be pleased with that. And I don't want to just yak on and on, because I came here to listen to you too. So how can I help you guys, and what's on your mind?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
First, I guess. In relation to mental health and state boards, emphasis on social emotional growth, I'm curious how our ability to address that is going to be hampered by the section 27, that line item, they opt in
On the surveys?
on a survey part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing they don't realize is a lot of cities and counties use that communities that care survey more than the schools. It just, you know, it was just somebody had a bug about it, and so they made it hard. But I think KASB has some ideas on the timing of that. But really, the social emotional learning is not as much about surveys as what do we need to be doing here to address our kids' needs. Like in some districts, like Seaman one year, it was suicide. They had several student and adult suicides, and so that was the thing they drilled down on, and they created a curriculum for bus drivers and everybody to recognize, you know, kids in trouble. In some schools, it's bullying, and some it's trauma. So I think it's way beyond what you might find out from a survey, although that is a really great place to start. It may just impact the timing of when you give it, or making sure that everybody signs on to it when they enroll kids in school.
Yeah, the language in here just makes it difficult to get a student voice.
Yeah, it
It's very
does.
difficult to ask them questions about what they believe in, or their values, or what practices they have. I mean, to get that input from them, to know how our schools can be better.
Yeah.
That seems like it's going to hamper our ability to get that uniform across the world.
Well, that was their idea, to hamper
Yes.
your ability to find out what kids are thinking. Yeah. Good question.
I think one concern that one of several that I have is that with the recognition of I mean, clearly there are increased social emotional needs of students, and that interferes with the ability to learn, no argument. And this may not be a popular opinion, but I continue to be concerned as an educator myself who wants to stay up to date, all that. I've, done the mental health first aid and you want to be cognizant of ways to support and connect people to resources, referral, knowing when to refer and not to refer is one of the biggest things of that. As a Board of Education member, I worry about, and I know the training part has changed so that we can meet those needs, but I do worry about our educators when we do talk about retention, that teachers did not go to school to be psychologists and social workers, and not that they're not responsive to those needs and want to help in ways that reflect best practices and current data trends and needs. And teachers know what their students need, but I do worry about just the societal expectation with that. And so I just want to keep voicing that, not in a way that I mean that we shouldn't care or respond or any of that, but our solution, I don't think the schools are the cause of our children's social emotional problems, but they are expected to be the answer in many ways. We're having that conversation of the society, whose responsibility is this? And as a citizen, I want to look after everybody. As a teacher, I want to look after, I want kids to be okay. And I know our teachers do too. But sometimes I worry about the resources and training that they have to equip them for being able to realistically teach, some new math that is on what we're being told this year, it should be. And then
Well, the good
also,
news is that one's now optional, but.
right. That's a bad example, but there are continual
there's something
updates
new
with
all
the
the
actual
time.
curriculum requirements where the academic requirements are. And now we're asking all of this too. So I just want to be mindful of that and always open for input and ideas of how as board members do we continue to have that conversation, not in a way that ignores or denies the reality of these very real social emotional needs, but not in a dismissive way, but also in a what are we asking of folks, and are we asking without also arming? That's a point of inner conflict for me personally.
Yeah, well,
I've had to be
like you said,
responsible.
they weren't trained that any more than they were trained in how to deal with dyslexia.
Right.
So we
Right.
said we need to move towards structured literacy. We have a training program. We put 15 million into paying Pittsburgh State to train every teacher out there on structured literacy. And social emotional, I mean, as you can imagine, over the last several years, we've really had to go back to the source, the teacher training in college, and go, you guys got to up your game, because we got to have social emotional. Not that we need teachers to be psychologists, but they need to recognize the signs so they can make better referrals. I mean, we have, what ACEs are, adverse childhood experiences, which could be dad got thrown in jail, he beat mom up, they got divorced, we got thrown out of the house, now we're in the rescue mission, we didn't have anything to eat at the house all week, that kind of stuff. We actually count those. I mean, when I was a kid, my mother here, if she and dad had gotten divorced, which they didn't, everybody in town would have known. It would have been a really big deal. Like, they had this whole family of people all the way around me. We have kids coming into Highland Park Central with 5 or 6 ACEs under their belt at kindergarten.
Yep.
And it not only impacts their ability to learn, it actually changes their brains. We can see it physically, it changes their brains. And it's not the teacher's fault, it's not the school's fault, but these kids come in the door and you have to deal with them.
Yeah.
People keep saying, well, you shouldn't be teaching kids social emotional stuff. I go, they just land in our classroom, man. What are you going to do? I mean, some kid comes in and he's all upset or just, catatonic over something that happened at home. You can't just, ignore it. You have to deal with it. I mean, it's no secret that our K-12 schools are the largest providers of mental health services for kids under 18 in the state. You guys
Now-
do. So.
If I can interject it.
Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, thanks. I just want to be real careful too. When we talk about social emotional learning, we are definitely not talking about teachers being psychologists. We're talking about some really low hanging fruit of foundational skills. And I don't think anyone would argue with, we want kids to understand how to be assertive. We want kids to understand, how curiosity leads into resilience. It's not always about the mental health. It's about those as Dr. Watson put it early on, those post-secondary success skills as well. And there's some real simple, easy ways that teachers can just do that with all kids on a foundational level. And our good teachers do it. Make no mistake, they do it. We just want to make sure that what's good for, what one teacher is doing and seeing impact with, we want all teachers to do, but it's definitely not. We're not asking our teachers to be psychologists, social workers. We're just asking them to give some of those foundational skills, and then also recognize, like, I can recognize the oil in my car needs changing, but I definitely can't change it, so that we can bring in then the experts.
Well, that's why we don't have a state prescription for what you do with social emotional. I remember down in Coffeyville, it was self-regulation. That was their entire focus for social emotional growth. And they had the cyclones or something. So in the halls of the junior and senior high, you would have this chart that had F1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like tornadoes, and a description of how I feel if I'm an F1 or an F5. And they had a tornado shelter. If you needed to tap out and go, get out of circulation and just go sit in the quiet. Actually, they had one for teachers too. Everybody knew what that was, even first graders, and they would have little paper clips they would put by colors, like how I'm feeling today, just to recognize how important self-regulation is. And another school, I remember their whole thing was grit. We're going to help our kids develop some grit because they're just not resilient enough, as you would say. So you know what your kids need. We're not going to tell you how to do it. We're just going to ask you to report when you come KISA time. What did you do and how did it work? So.
Well, and no one disagrees. We're committed to that. I think it's just important that we keep talking about it, because I do think, I've had teachers say to me, I don't know how much longer I can do this because of what's now expected. And so as a school board member, I'm not saying it doesn't exist and that we don't want to respond to it. I just want us to continue talking about it so that we're clear about what the expectations are and are not, how we can better support what those are, not because it's being lost in some sort of, political low-hanging fruit. That's not my intention at all. My intention is for us to be really clear and then also follow that with support, so that no one feels that they're on their own in that. I've had a number of teachers talk to me personally this year. It's like, I don't know what to do.
Well,
because they care.
Help, it's them. Teachers need as much help as kids.
And that's my point in that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys.
Does anybody else have questions or?
I just want to say thank you for your service.
Oh, it's been fun.
You and I got to know each other a lot.
Yeah.
And then you ran for the state board of education.
That just seemed like a good fit.
Well,
and I want
to thank you as a member of this board. I want to thank you personally for your service to the state of Kansas, the people of Kansas, for the people of this school district. We all appreciate it. We appreciate you fighting the good fight for us. I looked at this bill earlier today and had to walk away from the computer.
Yeah.
You've seen how
I get that. Yeah.
Too much. And they don't think it's enough.
I know.
So I want to say thank you very much for doing what you do.
Thank you. And you can thank Governor Kelly too, that there's not a lot crazier stuff landing in front of you, because she's been the backstop between the worst of it and you guys vetoing when she really needed to. So it's a fun job. I think if the maps hold, and we don't know yet, if the maps hold, I think I get to keep you guys. My new district will go from where I live east of Lake Shawnee, and half of my district will be in Johnson County. So Mom, I get to go do a lot of shopping over in Oklahoma Park, I guess. Anyway.
Well, and as a friend, I want you to do me a favor. If I ever decide that this is something that I might want, I want you to find me wherever you are and talk me out.
2 years.
No,
I'm up in
no,
2024.
no.
You'll be in my district.
There you
Yeah,
go.
you'll be in my
I
district.
appreciate your service. Continue to do it for the rest of the sentence.
No, my husband is a Shawnee County treasurer, and in 2020 we threw our signs in the trash and said 2024 is it. We'll be in our mid-70s and ready to go do
Still got a lot left
something.
in the tank.
Yeah, it'll just be different. It'll be different.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. we are ready for curriculum approval. Dr. Hare.
So in April, we came and shared some curriculum apps with you for industrial technology, social studies at the elementary level, and science 6th through 8th grade. So hopefully you've had a chance to look through those. I did bring some of the Lowell Social Studies weekly flyer magazine things. I think I want those. They were at their office last time. So the little newspapers. If anyone has any questions on those, always entertain questions and seek approval for those.
I just want to say I appreciate the let us look at it for a month. I really like that a lot. It gives time to get into it. And so thank you, because I know it involves another layer of prep to do that. So I'm comfortable with approval, but I also want to give time for questions if anyone has any. Okay. Okay. All right. Are we ready for a motion of approval then? We can do it all together.
Yeah.
Tony has moved and Phil has seconded that we approve all of the curriculum as presented in April. Thank you very much. Motion, or sorry, all those in favor, pardon me, got ahead of myself. All those in favor of approving the curriculum as presented, curricula, you're right.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 7-0. All right, and now on to more curriculum review.
Yeah, it's been a busy year.
Yeah, thank you.
So
I don't want to leave her out.
now there are 2 additional maps for visual arts, and that's for the pre-K through 12th grade, and then physical education grades 3 through 12. Visual arts is missing about 4 courses in the high school level, just because there are semester courses. So Becky really has about 14 courses that she's trying to map out, and we just ran out of time and substitutes and everything else. So we said, let's push forward with what we have now. So there's still maybe 4 other additional courses that are coming, sometime this summer. So those 2 are there for your review, and then we'll take that out a month. So we'll ask for approval in June. So you have some time to look through those. And then there's one other that is a Medal of Honor curriculum. And so I'd like to invite the junior high team up, Mr. Bland, Mr. Schneider. You guys can talk about that a little bit.
Thank you, Doctor. So Mr. Schneider came to me along with a group of other teachers midway through the school year this year and said, hey, as much as, Second Step checks all the boxes for what we need to do, we feel like we're lacking on social emotional support in our building. So I said, well, hey, let me know if you want to go to some workshops and things and what you can find. And we went to Medal of Honor workshop, and well, Cameron and a team of teachers did. And I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about what they discovered on that trip.
So Medal of Honor was a program, was a workshop that took place earlier on this semester in Overland Park. Carly Holloway, our academic counselor, put it on our radar. So she put it all together. Eric Bailey, who's our 6th grade social studies teacher, Sarah Johnson, who's a 6th grade ELA teacher, and myself went to the workshop at the Marriott in Overland Park. It was an all-day program. It was very beneficial. So just a little bit about the Medal of Honor program. It's a character development curriculum. I believe Janet gave you some information about it before the meeting. Each teacher was given a curriculum workbook. This is also accessible online. So if you go to cmohs.org, you can get the entire curriculum totally free. Training was totally free, which I know that sometimes when we as teachers come up to you as a board, we're asking for a lot of money. I'm not asking for a penny. So it was awesome. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect going into the workshop. I saw it as something that I could get my history and military itch scratched by getting to meet someone who won a Medal of Honor, and get some PDP points as well. But it was a really awesome experience. We got to speak to a Medal of Honor recipient. There's only 66 Medal of Honor recipients who are living today. and he spoke to us. He came down from, I believe, Iowa or Illinois. I got an autographed book from him. But the basis of the Medal of Honor program is instilling 6 core values in our students. And I wish Ann was still here. I could really thank her for teeing me up nicely because this really ties in. And Kelly, I want to thank you for talking to Ann about how there's a level of unpreparedness. The teachers and staff in our building teaching second step. And I didn't go to school to be a counselor or a psychologist or a social worker. I recognize the importance of social emotional learning, character development. I feel I feel ill prepared to be the person to facilitate that in my classroom. But with the Medal of Honor curriculum, we found that, when I say we, talking about the folks that went to this workshop, we found that we would be able to incorporate character development into our daily curriculum at the social studies level and at the English language arts level, grades 6 through 8. Just kind of there are 6 core values that the Medal of Honor curriculum focuses around. They're courage, integrity, sacrifice, commitment, citizenship, and patriotism. And all of those tie into one another very nicely. It's constructed of 59 lessons in total. The plan is, we haven't dove in super deep yet because we wanted to get it approved first. There's a set of introductory lessons. There's 11 of those. Each grade level would go through the entire introduction every year, just to kind of rehash, what's important with those 6 core values. What does it mean to be a selfless servant in the community? What does each of those core values mean? And then based on grade level, each grade level would focus on 2 core values throughout the rest of the year. So for example, section B, it covers courage and integrity lessons. And we could have 6th grade focus on courage and integrity for a year. And as 7th graders, we would teach them section C, and that would be focusing on sacrifice and commitment. And then by the time they got to 8th grade in my class, I'd be teaching them section B, which is about citizenship and patriotism. That way, if we have a student who comes through our building, 6th through 8th grade, they're getting all 59 lessons taught to them. I've got buy-in from Eric Bailey. I know I'll have buy-in from Eric too. He wants to just see this approved. We haven't sat down and hashed everything out as to who is teaching what lessons. I just kind of use that as an example. Carly Holloway is on board with this. I know next year at the junior high, we'll have Carly, we'll have a new rap social worker, or rap therapist, and we'll have a new social worker. So we'll have 3 folks up there in the front office. The hope is to get those folks more involved in the classroom, teaching with second step, and then have Medal of Honor be reinforcement for the second step program. I see that the second step program is very beneficial. I just think that we would be better suited to have those professionals take that on and then let the teachers take this on. It can take a lot of things off of our teachers' plate at the junior high. Some other things that I needed to make clear about this program, and they made this very clear in our workshop. The core values presented, they really carry over in all walks of life. The lessons that I teach my 8th graders about integrity and courage and sacrifice and commitment, those are lessons, or those are core values that they become a dad, they're going to have to find a new way to have courage and make new sacrifices. When they become a school leader or a board member or a welder or a musician, they've got to find all of those things going forward in their profession. It's not a military recruitment tool. They wanted to make sure that that was very clear. This curriculum is not here's 59 lessons and son, I'll see you when you turn 18 in the United States Marine Corps. So they incorporate stories of Medal of Honor recipients and how they show courage, integrity, sacrifice, commitment, citizenship, and patriotism. And then the discussion revolves around, okay, you saw how Joe Blow showed courage, integrity, and sacrifice during this battle in Vietnam. What are ways that you can show courage, integrity, and sacrifice in your day-to-day life? I think the biggest example of that is the first 3 lessons don't even talk about Medal of Honor. Talks about selfless service, talks about exploring the 6 core values. Had really great discussions with my kids on who is someone in your life just on a daily basis. Doesn't have to be a celebrity. It can be a coach. It can be your mom, your grandma, Aunt Betty Lou, teacher. Who is somebody that is a selfless servant to you and your community? And the discussion was awesome. It was awesome, awesome, awesome. Had a kid write about me. I sent him a check in the mail. So, yeah, I know you've hopefully you've looked over what Jana submitted. That's all I have for my spiel, and I'd be super happy to answer any questions about the program.
Mr. Schneider.
Yes, ma'am.
I think this is wonderful, and it solidifies the point I was trying to make earlier. I've looked into this program because I was very curious, and by teaching those core values, you may not know, but you're also decreasing bullying, you're decreasing suspension, you're decreasing discipline referrals. That's what all the research says. And I think that having a group of teachers really be involved in the selection of a character development, social emotional learning, call it what you will, is really important.
Well, thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate it. Any other questions?
Susan, I'm going to follow up on that, and you may know more about this than I do. You referenced that this program has had results in those various areas, and so, Mr. Schneider, that was my question. Is there data on this, of the effects that it has on kids, or is this curriculum too new to have established data? Can I go to the website?
That's a good question. So the curriculum that they gave us was redone in the summer of 2021.
Okay.
So
I didn't find any specifically, but I'm talking about character education programs in general.
That's my assume, Susan. So that's what I want to follow up on, whether it was connected to this curriculum or whether it was just in general, because I know you're right that these kinds of programs help with those kinds of issues.
And we discussed in a meeting, Jana, Derek, Carly, and I, it may have to come to the point where we develop an assessment on the local level in our building. Okay, what are things looking like in regards to disciplinary referrals, community involvement before we teach Medal of Honor, and then 3 years down the road, what does it look like now after those new 6th graders next year go through the entire program? So this is another shameless plug. This really lends itself well to PBL. I know that's a buzz word. Mrs. Holloway and I did a community service project tied around the Medal of Honor. I think the lesson was, let me get to it. So sacrifices we make, that's what we led off with. And we talked about what the burden of leadership looks like. And then we had our students research 2 nonprofit organizations or just public organizations that they could get involved with to take on a leadership role just as 13 and 14-year-olds. And then we caught them the next day and said, all right, you found those organizations. We want you to plan a service project for them. So the last week of school, we did our service projects. The kids came up with some great ideas. Had a group of girls who organized a project to make capes for children who were receiving cancer treatment at St. Jude's Children's Hospital in Memphis. We had a pet supply drive for Prairie Paws Animal Shelter here in Douglas County. We did, what was the last one? Oh, we did goodie bags and thank you cards for Baldwin City police officers as well. That was the 3rd one. So a lot of different ideas. We only picked 3. There's so many good submissions. And I told the kids when we picked the 3, like, just because we didn't choose your project does not mean it was worthwhile. And I challenge you to go out and do your project this summer. So any other questions from y'all? Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
We would need a motion for approval to use that.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna put those on the review, so we could go to.
Yeah.
So you have a-
Oh, yeah. Spoiler alert, we like it.
Well, if any of you have any questions and you'd like to speak with me one-on-one or speak with Carly one-on-one, I'm more than welcome to sit down and have an open conversation about Medal of Honor. That's how bought in I am on this program.
Awesome.
Even in summer. One more question. Is this meant to be supplemental for what's going on now?
Absolutely.
Replace everything that's happening?
Supplemental.
Okay. Yeah.
And so our two facilitators were high school teachers. They were flown in. One was from the Chicago area, one was from San Diego. And we asked, how do you squeeze this into your school year? And the high school teacher from San Diego said, teach your unit of whatever you're on. Maybe you're teaching about the Civil War. And the day after kids take a test, their brains are fried. They just want to can we have a break for a day? You teach them that whole honor lesson. So yeah, exactly. Give you the stories about these guys fighting for your freedom in Vietnam. But each section only has 15 to 17 lessons. So it's something that's very doable. It's not, we won't have to teach a Medal of Honor lesson every other day throughout the year. So it wouldn't be putting on way too much of a burden on our social studies and English teachers.
It seems like there's connections to the existing standards, especially for history, social.
Right. Right. And they were just able to put on their staff a curriculum specialist who was in the process of, I think when we did our workshop, it was his first week. So he was there and he had put together standard correlation packet for us, where the history, government, and social studies, or the HGSS standards paired up with the SECD standards to where they tied in with one another. So that was really nice. So I could see that probably growing. Hopefully it grows. So
And just a lot of these 6 core values tie in pretty closely with our PBIS programs that we do as well.
And did you say, I think you said this, but you said, I know you said 6th grade, but you have 7th grade buy-in too, so it's across the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank y'all. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
I just comment I want to make is that I know when Mr. Bland first told me about this, that he had sent the teachers to it and how excited they were when they came back. So the staff was excited about the program, and as you can get from Mr. Snyder, they are bought into this and excited about it. That makes it, to me, that makes it that much more, it'll be that much more effective because they're sold on it and they want to do it. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I was at junior high Friday. I said, wait until Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, I said, you're gonna have a featured speaker. Spoiler alert, it's me. Don't get too excited.
Okay, so we'll have those back on the June board meeting.
Perfect. All right.
Still here.
Elementary progress report. Let's do that.
Okay, so, yeah. Yeah.
I believe it does go beyond 8th grade. I believe it does go into the high school. Yes.
Well, their two presenters were high school teachers.
Yes, that
The
Cameron
two
went to the workshop.
presenters that they
and the
went
two
to
presenters they
are
had
high
were
school teachers.
Oh, that's okay.
So yeah, I
So-
think there is like a 9 through 12 program as well as I think that's on the website. And that proposal gives a link to the website, so you guys can get straight to that. Okay, elementary progress reports. Okay, so it seems like every year, like in August, I get requests to have some changes made to the grade card, and we're kind of in the middle of doing school at that time. Plus, it takes time for technology to hand code in the report cards. So this year we did, when I got that request, we said, let's hold off, let's wait till April, make your changes by April, and then we'll take them to the board in May. So the list of changes that you have there are the edits that the teachers have made to the grade card. Basically, they're little word tweaks and things where we don't call them sight words anymore, they're high frequency words, and just little edits to the wording of things. They did suggest that one, that rating scale, they had a new 4, 3, 2, 1, just new verbiage that they wanted included, which I think is a little bit more positive. And on that, it was grades K, 1 and 2, all one of the same thing. So we would change that. So that would be the building wide would have the same thing. So less confusing for parents. Just basic wording really is all it is. It didn't really change too much. There were some sections there where they, like on 1st grade, they changed out what they wanted to say for reading and writing. And that's just because that represents how they're teaching and what they're teaching and more of the science of reading and not necessarily the old things that were on the grade card before. So if you could look at those at some time, and we can bring those back in June as well. So you have some time to review them, and then that will still give technology time to get everything coded. So we'd be ready to go with those for the 22-23 school year.
So what you're telling us here is this is all already That's what- It's scary when you're versus.
I
It
know,
is.
yeah, you look at this and you're sort of like, wow, this looks like pretty wholesale changes, but you're saying this is just really updating verbiage more than anything. There's not a lot of substantive changes here.
Yeah.
It's just gonna look a lot different.
Yeah, just the words are a little bit different.
I had a question, a music question, but you know what? I'm gonna not waste the board's time. I'm gonna go back and look at it. It seemed like there were some changes about teaching the history and culture of music, and I'll ask Ms.
So-
Jacobson about it, but I know
Yes.
we have time. I don't want to waste time. I can't find it now, but I made a little note to myself earlier when I
So on
was.
the intermediate center, the only changes for the specials one, because it's kind of a separate report card addendum that goes on there. Specials, those are just, Katie said that she does those things, but they're not necessarily graded. So there are pieces in there, but these are the things she would like to have graded. And effort is one.
Mhm.
So I left effort on there. Effort is one across all the specials. So all the specials are grading effort. And then the other things that she looks at to build the music program.
Mhm.
And in the same way, Ryan at the elementary, he doesn't necessarily do the grade cards, but these are the things he's looking for at the elementary level. So as they kind of build up to this piece of it.
Yeah, because I'm like, she does, oh, here it is. It's under the general music,
Yes.
which is, yeah. Okay,
Historical. and cultural
recognizes
aspects.
historical and cultural aspects of music.
Yes. So all of that is in her curriculum and as part of the standards. so
Totally,
she's
she does
doing
it. So I'm like, why, that's why I was curious about
Yeah,
why
but if
that
they
was
would-
removed.
Yeah, if they would grade on each one of the standards, that their report cards for specials, the report card would be as long as it is for a grade level report card.
Got it.
So these are just the things where she wanted, she's looking at if they're performing, so with singing and with instruments and doing the musical pieces of it.
Mhm. Okay,
And then on the fifth grade band, we took that out since we're not doing the band at the fifth grade
Right.
level anymore. So let's just take that off the report card.
yep. Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes, but ask Katie if you have other.
Yeah,
specific
no,
questions.
no, I will, because I'm like, why are you taking that off? You do it. But no, I understand what you're
I
saying.
think she's one that's asked a couple years in a row now.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
it
we
makes,
need to get that changed.
makes total sense. Okay,
Okay.
so we'll
those
come
are-
back to this next month then
Yeah.
on what was presented tonight. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Harris has been patiently waiting for the request for the out-of-state wrestling trip to Missouri, I believe, right? Yeah.
Last year I came up here and I had to ask for a trip to Colorado. Before me, there's this little kid talking about math. You remember this kid?
Oh, yes.
I
love math.
I gotta follow this act. That was amazing. I went home wanting to enroll in math class. Okay, good. So yeah, he made me look pretty boring. But so this summer, we're trying to go to Columbia, Missouri for a wrestling camp / or a clinic. And then tournament, and then plan is to go to Columbia on Friday. I was gonna try to get a clinic with Don Bradley, their assistant coach at the University of Missouri, but the head coach has said there's been some like compliance issues, and it's like a recruiting contact because we're high school students. But so the current plan is to have a clinic and practice at Columbia Hickman High School. That Coach and AD have replied today and said that's okay. And then Coach Bradley's gonna try to give us a tour of Hearns and the wrestling facility and stuff. And then a tournament on Saturday, and then on the way back, come go through Oceans of Fun and come home.
Fun.
Yes. Yep. And then one kid asked, "When are Worlds of Fun?" I said, "It's July." There been Worlds of Fun in July? Miserable. But so that's.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
The only question I have was, I know we had approved the trip for the basketball team last time.
Mhm.
There's about this one, band options. I think that was for June.
Timing. Yeah, yeah. I don't think that, I don't think that's an issue.
No.
July 15th
Yeah,
through
because
17th.
they're in June.
is-
Yep.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Chris has said that it's okay with as far as the van
Oh,
availability. Approval.
I move we approve the wrestling team going to Missouri this summer.
Susan moved and Phil seconded that we approve the wrestling trip. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thanks,
Thank you.
Mr. Harris. Okay, so it is 8:30. I'm really sorry, but I need to take a 5-minute restroom break. And then we'll come back to strategic plan. Okay. So we are at recess until 8:35. I'm glad you saw it. Need my sunglasses. Oh, yeah.
No, that's not so.
Yeah.
It's 8:34, so T minus, oh, now it's 8:35. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order and circle back to old business with the strategic plan. Everyone, Mr. Dorothy, why don't you, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, let me
Let
go
start.
through where we're at.
Yeah.
And let the board know where that stands. You've seen the rough draft. You've also seen the theme for suggested information. So here's the thing, the themes 1, 2, and 3 need to have, they most certainly have been whittled down to the key things. Most certainly you still have a say on that. But then Mr. Dodge in June will meet with the administrative team and go through there and fill in those columns. Who's responsible, what's the timeline, and fill out those columns. So that still has to happen, but essentially your work as far as the strategic plan, other than supervising it for the next 5 years, would be done on those first 3 themes. Theme 4, which the administrative team will also weigh in on for you, most certainly is a piece that the board is kind of getting a hold of. And most certainly Kelly put some wording together for you. So I'm kind of giving you a report on the first 3 themes and are asking, do you have any questions on the first 3 or what is going to happen now? Because my feeling is, I believe, Mark, you're meeting June 6th and 7th. So I believe by June 20th school board meeting that those 3 would be filled out or close.
That's our hope.
Okay. So that's the goal, is to have that for June 20th. Theme 4, most certainly tonight you have maybe have some conversation about love, like, don't like, the wording that was put in place. Again, administrative team will weigh in on that, look at that, and then give you their recommendations on that. But so that's kind of where this is right now. What I'm thinking here is you're darn close to just having this thing wrapped up. This is a 5-year plan. You don't, all that stuff doesn't happen in 1 year's time. It happens over the next 5 years. In the end, you help set priorities on, well, you say this is going to be done then, the board thinks this needs to be done sooner. So you'll have that part to weigh in on. Then most certainly your job is to periodically over the next 5 years say, okay, where are we at? Where's this at? Where are these things? So you've got that strategic plan for you to work from to help you work with Mr. Dodge and the administrators on where's this going.
So let's piece it out. 1 through 3, let's tackle that first. Does anyone have anything that they, now that you've had several chances to look at it, anything that anyone says, oh gosh, forgot about this, I want to mention that, I'd like to have that drawn out more before it goes back and they can start really filling that in? You're done.
Started.
Wait till June.
Yeah. That way we feel like we really accomplished something.
We're off and running.
It's like mowing a little yard in town. Look at me, I'm so productive. Okay, I do have something that I'm feeling guilty about that I don't feel is drawn out in the first part. And I do think it came up and we talked about it, so I'm not sure how it's not here, or maybe it's here in a way that it's just not tracking with me. But I do think, and perhaps I'm the only one. The more I study, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm just fascinated by it, and it guides every year. It guides my own teaching instruction more and more, understanding how different brains learn. And more, I learned how much brain development, or the synapses that are created learning before you're even 5 years old. And I'm We have such a beautiful early childhood program here, and I don't see emphasis in wording here that we need to, I think we do because we do it, but I would like to ask the board to think about verbiage about how we support our early learners, because there's more research every day that shows those we have interventions for all the things that happen later, but the things that we do for our earliest learners and the quality of that programming is an easy thing to overlook, and more we're finding out sets the foundation of everything that is to come. And I would like to see some point of emphasis, and I'm not seeing that kind of drawn out in that way in section 1. And I do believe it is one of our values in this district. We've had a national blue ribbon, our Parents as Teacher program, or STAR, formerly called Parents as Teacher program, has been national award winning. It's integral to how children are prepared at the primary center. But if we don't articulate that being a priority, I worry that can unintentionally be lost as we also strive ahead. So that would be something I would like to bring to the board's attention. But if I'm the only one, that's the discussion we should have.
It's a great observation. And you think it would most naturally fall into target area 1, or?
I did, because of the other things that are discussed there, but there might be another area that just because target 1 seemed to be more preparing students for success. I mean, it starts at the very beginning, and it's ultimately it is an academic, social, emotional endeavor. Creating the joy for learning, that happens right away.
Yeah, and I partially asked that question because I'm looking at target area 3 right now, engagement in school and school activities. There's a lot of outreach that goes into parents, teachers.
Right. Again, it sets the foundation.
All this community events that they host, and they're looking at our team that in the community, and there's like basically play dates for, I think it's 1 and up basically.
Yep.
Down to that building, but so I think you're probably right that target area 1 would be the most natural fit for that, but I could also, advocate there should be additional mentions for preschool in each of these target areas.
I agree.
To some degree, right?
I agree. I mean, we do it, but so we want to keep doing it. We want to keep that being, I'm assuming we want to continue that as a priority in this district. And I'm just personally more and more interested in all the things that can happen on the front end that can help set that stage for down the road. And anecdotally, I can say that every parent I know who was involved with Parents as Teachers, I never hear from one of them of how do I get involved in this or that, because they've known from the beginning that relationship was already created. This is how we get involved at school and community. And if that connection and relationship is there, then that can be a trust building exercise. It's very positive from day 1, that can carry people through as they transition in age and in different buildings. So it was just an observation I wanted to bring to attention.
I don't know exactly where it lands, but yeah.
Is there a comfort level with asking Michael to go back and kind of look at that and potentially add that for then the administrative team to look at? Or is that something that, I mean, I don't want to circumvent any sort of process here. Because I thought I saw it in many of the word bubbles and, the different parts of earlier versions of this in our packet.
It is possible, and I'm not saying not to go where you're going, but it is possible when they hit the red, yellow, green process with the administrator setting down. It's possible, and I can't remember for sure, that maybe that got bumped because of what all we're doing right now with that, and said, because I think we were looking for those things that need to be looked after, and maybe that's why it didn't end up on the list. That doesn't, I get where you're going and what you're thinking about doing here, but that may be why it's not there.
Right, and I would get, so I guess I would just ask to take a look at that. I mean, if it's the strategic plans for only the things that we are not doing as well as we want to or are terrible at, then we want to make sure and communicate that. If it's also a strategic plan that identifies our strengths and things that we want to lean into further and build upon, that may have shaken out a bit differently if you're
Mhm.
doing red, yellow, green as you described, but I do know that it was mentioned in earlier incarnations of this process, but then I didn't see it here. So I don't want us to lose focus that is a continuing priority.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Susan.
It's a great point, Kelly. I absolutely agree. I'm wondering, it's making me curious, Paul, how does the strategic plan, knowing that we also are following state board guidance, which early childhood education is a state board goal, how are they integrated with one another? Or do we have kind of this state board goal over here and then our really focused strategic plan?
Well, I think your strategic plan here in this district was based on input, public, staff, student input from within this district.
Mhm.
Not necessarily following state standards or state goals.
Right.
So that's why, yeah, I think most of your themes were generated within the district. So they
Yeah.
might have that necessarily.
Okay. I just know we can't get away from not that we would want to. Absolutely agree with all of your points about how important it is and vital it is. We are going to continue to follow that because of the state board goals, but I do think I saw some early childhood things in the survey too, so.
So I would just ask that we kind of earmark that topic as it transitions to Mr. Dodge and team. If there's, obviously all the things that have come from this are ultimately going to be aligned with state goals because they must be.
Right.
But I just don't want us to lose sight of that aspect, because just in advocacy for our little ones and where it all begins. So thank you for listening.
To your point, most of the bullet points we have are not really grade level specific.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of those you can just say, okay, we're gonna look at the rigors and the
Right.
curriculum for those kids that preschool
True.
age. So I think a lot of it, it's something that we're doing well, but just to realize that maybe that should be the point, is like, hey, look, this is on all levels.
Right.
That was my question.
That's a good
Kelly,
point.
I don't want to belittle your concern. I just wondered if at some point in one of these goals,
If it's inclusive.
early education, just so it's stated. Without adding a new
Thing. Yeah, no, I totally get
So
that.
Pre-K to 12 strategic plan.
Mhm.
Or just something, it's all encompassing.
Right.
This is for example, continuing to evaluate relevance of your curriculum and resources.
It's
With a
implied.
focus on early education or something to that effect.
Mhm.
Mr.
I might have been reacting to like ACT. I clearly know like that we're talking, you know what I mean? We're talking about students of a certain age. So I'm like, are we representing? So, yeah.
Mr. Dodge, do you want to speak to
I
that?
don't want to overstep my bounds here at this time, but a couple of things in where Andy was going is something what I was.
All right, can't hide the background.
But where Andy was going is kind of what I was thinking. We've already got there's 36 total action points there, and over 5 years, it's about 7 to 8 different things that we want to accomplish. So we want to make sure that we don't add so much that we wind up watering down or not able to accomplish it. The other thing is there a way what you're trying to do, rather than targeting to one specific area like you're talking about, do we make sure that we include it in what, like we were talking about, do we go with a focus on early childhood through 12? The other side to it as well is with the strategic plan here, we're looking at what areas of growth or changes do we want to make. If it's a value that we hold strong, it's something that we want to say is our identity. That's more of our focus areas or our values that KASB will help us determine as we move forward through that process. We continue there. So it can be important to us
and it may not have to be a part of the strategic piece,
Mhm.
but I do like the idea of adding it towards that continuous improvement that's looking at a focus early on through a 12 span, if that makes sense.
It does, and it just alleviates my concern that it wasn't verbalized in a specific way. So thank you. I mean, I know that it's implied, but I just know that words have power. And I think I was maybe reacting to when I see ACT, I'm like, this is about a certain age group. And I hope we've worked so hard on this. I hope we part of our communication tactic, and we're going to be talking with Michael tomorrow. This is for all of our earliest bullpups all the way through. And that's the
Absolutely.
spirit of all this. So that can be
Absolutely.
drawn out more. That eases my discomfort without seeing specific language and adding another box, which we don't want to do.
And what it does is it allows it puts a specific meat to what we want to do with it. So.
Cool. I like meat. Okay. Thank you. Thanks guys for listening to that. Okay. Theme 4. So I purposely wrote something after Chris and I met that was not in the format that Michael, like it has to be transferred into the format. What I tried to do based on information that came in, and then Chris and I having that discussion of what do we want to make sure is captured, was to create a document based on how I have observed most of the board members to process information. So it is not formatted in the way, I mean, we want our strategic plan to all look the same. So I don't want there to be any misunderstanding that theme 4 is a separate identity piece. That would, I think, be counterproductive and counterintuitive. Again, we're meeting with Michael tomorrow after you guys have had a chance to look at that and take pieces of things that, okay, this is how we can, this is the stuff that the 2 or 3 things that we like that we want to kind of put in this action step part of theme 4. But I purposely wanted to write it in a different way so you could think about it in ways that I've observed us thinking and discussing and processing. So it's admittedly different than what the first thing you got. I did, yes. Yes, and mainly just being stewardship and investment. Correct, based on things that we've talked about, things that came in our surveys, things that Chris and I then subcommittee met with after the fact as a draft for your consideration to be able to draw out themes captured in a different way. It makes sense in my mind in a different way as it does all of this, but I was trying to format it in a way that would facilitate discussion so that we can get to the bullet points that will then be steered into the format that Mr. Kuntz has labored over on our behalf. So I want to make sure that's really clear. This is not an attempt to derail.
Well, I appreciate a lot about what you pulled together here based on, like you said, our conversations over years at this point.
Mhm.
This, but the most salient piece to me is this last part about as we begin considerations around bond issues and what that may entail, being as inclusive as possible for our community at large. You know, like our Parks and Rec came here 2 or 3 months ago with a really comprehensive plan. Basically, hold your horse just for a little while. We're going to have further conversations about that, but re-including those folks in here as well as like our sped co-op and other organizations that we work tightly with, getting them more involved in that conversation about what could our facilities look like going forward, but also where do we have needs currently that we can, you know, reshuffle the deck of how buildings or facilities are currently utilized. Because that's a bigger, broader viewpoint, like including the city, for instance, that conversation too. So I appreciate having that more broad viewpoint and not just what we do as a school district, but also be more inclusive of our other community entities that we partner with a lot on many things across the board.
Okay. Is the strategic partner standpoint something that everyone's comfortable with? Is that something that you guys would think that we're already doing green on, or is that something that you would think would be identified as something that we could go further with that would be worthy then of identifying it as an action, a potential action step?
Like is that like be a formal task force? I mean, you can now, you get a little bit of some cross,
Mhm.
you know, responsibilities, you know, you've got, you know, maybe this group says we want to do this, but ultimately we're the ones like, do we pass the ball on and all that kind of stuff. We're the
Right.
ones responsible for that. So I don't know if, I don't know how formal of a task force you want to make that versus like just, hey, look, we're willing to listen to some input and stuff.
Right. And I didn't want to get too far into that. And I think I put somewhere, maybe in a different section, sorry, my phone died, that, you know, based on the recommendations of the architectural firm that we choose. But I was trying to be as inclusive of all the different groups so that we, you know, maybe think outside of the regular norm. Obviously, the rec commission is going to have representation on a group like that. Are there other groups that when we think about the needs of our spaces and some of the more obvious things that don't come to our mind, are there other groups that could be a part of that process or would be useful as strategic partners in that process? That, again, that was kind of just framing things and then boomeranging it back to you guys to think.
The more ideas that you can have, if there's something that think of something that
Mhm.
we didn't think, I don't know, if we say, oh, that's a great idea, but I know as things progress, I think that it winds up.
We have to own it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear the concern on that.
Yeah, I see it as a collaboration, communication, committee, if you will, or what we call a task force or what. I don't know exactly how to define that, but I think it's designed to create, you know, positive collaboration and then create feedback and communication channel. But ultimately, you know, when you say long-term, right, how long-term is this like ongoing for, you know, forever?
That's the question I'm asked. Yeah, that's,
I think
I mean, to me, it would be like the length of the strategic plan, you know, as a 5-year endeavor that would would mostly coincide with a bond and then follow up to how is that working for the stakeholders we're serving, but not like a 50-year deal or anything.
So this group would potentially give feedback and their recommendations to us or to the board for consideration.
Under the umbrella of the architecture. I mean, even each firm had like a different name for their I can't even, you know, there was like different names. So task force is just another substitution, but they had different names for those kinds of, so under their advisement, but I was trying to list all the possibilities so that you guys would be able to think about that or say, no, I don't like that. I just want it to be us, or,
I like having,
you know,
I think that input is super helpful kind of in the beginning, to kind of, as you're kind of putting all of those pieces together. But I think when you start to have, as the process is going on, you know, start arguing about where an outlet's gonna go, you know, and say, well, we need outlets here. So,
right.
you know, I think
big
you
picture
can-
work.
Yeah.
You can get super into too much.
Agreed. Okay.
I think early on, you know, for the rec, be like, hey, well, we'd like to do this on the floor, so we have office space. You know, that's a good idea. I would have thought.
Right.
Just, I may at least speak to some of this here in a minute on the next agenda. Last time around, we definitely had a committee that worked with the architect forming whatever needs were. And then also just kind of a general, like I was in the meeting when Doug brought in the first design for the PAC. He said, he brought back another one, but it was very overarching. It was very, here's what we think. Another good example, they were, what colors are we going to make the PC? Somebody said, well, we're famous for our maple leaves. Got it. And then they ran with that. So it was kind of a general siphoning of a community psyche into the process with it. You're absolutely right. We can't start tinkering. We don't want any would-be architects on this committee saying, no,
Right.
hold on, buddy.
Yeah, I guess we have, that's my.
Yeah. Okay. So we're on the same page with that. I've tried to write in a way that didn't make a ton of assumptions. And that's why you guys are like, what do you mean by that? I don't know. What do you think?
I think this is right on. My only concern is at what point do we, you know, we're going to talk about architect tonight. So I think they just need to be part of this process.
Yes.
And help us determine how many people and what this schedule looks like. And so on.
Yep. Got it. There you go. To be
Task force
determined.
of not overwhelming duration.
Yes, oh, yes.
Not like that stupid 5-year thing I signed up. State council.
Forever.
That
It's
turned
like a
into
gateway.
6 or 7 years. I
Yeah,
think,
gateway to coming back on board. What about the, so this was not my idea. This actually came out of meeting with Mr. Dorothy and Mr. Dodge, but, and maybe it doesn't belong in the strategic plan aspect of action steps. I mean, it's easy, but incorporating the practice of an annual facilities tour as part of our special meeting. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the strategic, because I was like, that's a great idea. We're totally going to do that. But also I want there to be, if that's something that you guys agree with, buy-in about, it communicates the importance of doing that and the people who work hard in those areas. If there's any other of those kinds of things that you guys, yes, these are things that we want to make sure we identify, because that's something that we're not currently doing as a board. We'll do it individually on an individual basis, but we're not doing it as a group. So that's, to me, that's an easy one, like mowing my yard at my house. That's, my lot's this big, it's an easy win. But if you guys don't feel like it's an appropriate action step, we don't have to do that.
So, and most certainly that's up to you guys, but timing wise, sometime this fall would be a perfect time for the board to do a tour of all your facilities. It takes some time to walk through, and you can see staff along the way, talk to staff. You have your architect with you as you're going around, and you actually kind of maybe pick up something and say, I don't think we've gotten that done anywhere on any list, and we ought to talk about that. So it tends to be, you get the board clerk goes along and they keep notes. So as things come up and you want it on there, she's getting it on your notes. But having that tour with Mr. Dodge and Mike Elliott and the architects, you guys go around, and it can be you pick up some things you hadn't really thought about, or at least gives you some considerations.
So schedule. Well, yeah. So my question is, how specific do you want to be in putting this as an action step? Is this an annual review? Is this a regular evaluation? Is this, how do we state this, right? Because we want to make sure that whatever we put in the strategic plan, we can actually meet. And the question is, do we or future boards need to do this every year, understanding that it's a revolving board, and it may be useful for new board members, and I would include myself in that camp, to go see facility, right? And so do we do this?
Do we say, do we make it open-ended and say regular evaluation? Do we say specifically annual evaluation?
Are you talking about putting it on a strategic plan or just suggesting?
It came up. I just wanted to tell you, I don't think it's a bad, I think it's a great timing.
Yeah.
Whether you want to continue that. When I first came here, we did some facility tours. After all the building and stuff, the board kind of said, let's drop that off for a while. We've done our facility stuff for a while, so it kind of dropped off, and we just never got back to it. But we used to do that in the district I was in. Every year, the board in like November would take this tour of all the facilities every year. Then I came here, and we started that way, and we were doing it that. But then I get it. After that, it was like, geez, we've done all these facilities, built all this stuff. Maybe we can take a break from that for a little while. And we never went back.
I just think one tour, I don't know, maybe I'm not looking at it correctly, but I think for the entire board to be in all of our facilities at least once a year is a very low requirement. I think we should, I think that's something that we can achieve.
I've been on the board for 5 years. I've never been to the, yes, I'm scared to take it 5 years, right?
Has it been?
Yeah. How do you can hear that?
Time flies.
No, but there's parts of the junior high I've never been in before. There's the maintenance facilities I've never walked in before. I didn't know the roof was that bad. until you guys told me about it. So, I mean, there's things that we could see, and I'm just not invited or requesting to go to this class, but I don't even know that they're there.
Yeah.
So having a routine of, like you said, every November or whatever, we just do that tour, we take a half a day or whatever we take to get to the buildings and show our faces for one, but also see where there might be issues we need to address.
That's it too. I mean, it isn't just about looking at the stuff. It's also visiting with the people who are stewards of the facilities and all of the things that have been creatively thought to short-term fix this, but long-term fix. And for those of us who, you know, don't understand all that stuff as well, it helps to see things. Even if you're getting updates about things, sometimes if you, oh, okay, now I understand what you're talking about. Now I understand that it's 125 degrees in here, and now I need a coat. And like now, because I feel it, I sense it, and it can create a different sense of urgency when you have a sensory experience. I personally would be in favor of an annual tour, you know, an annual facilities thing, and I know many other districts do engage in that as best practices. But if it's going to be in our strategic plan, we have to have some consensus about what that looks like. And if it isn't an annual tour and there's different, you know, language about that everyone would be comfortable with, let's talk about that so that we can put something in there.
I think the plan should say something like the board make a priority to facilities or visit facilities, person, whatever, without a specific thing, and we, the board, can create.
Yeah, that we don't tie down. I mean,
Okay.
I think the bigger part, I mean, there's probably not that many changes that you're gonna, I can imagine by the third year in a row of walking through buildings. Oh yeah, there's a letter F for fiction still on the wall. You know, I think the bigger part is actually seeing the staff and getting to have that debate. I think that's the more important part of that, as opposed to just looking at the stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bigger part, and you can do that without having to, because I think to go to walk all of these buildings and see everything and do that, and that's like a full day's deal, you know. And I don't know if you need to actually look at every wall and ceiling and thing every year.
Every year.
But I think at least putting your face in and having everybody say, oh, look, there's Kelly, you know, she's here in the building.
It becomes an administrative
Yeah.
checklist.
Well,
They're gonna show us the things they think need attention.
Right.
I would think you'd break it up by building per week, or, I mean, to do the entire district's facilities in one day, I think would be a long day.
Okay, so if we change the language about making it a priority, then we can work out the details or whatever, you know, then it's in there as an established priority. And then we can work out, and Mr. Dodge, you know, may have some good suggestions about how that can work too, and then we give that opportunity. Okay, so got that. Anything else?
Bullet points 4 and 5.
I don't have it in front of me now.
Which one are we talking? Consider further and extensive analysis of facility needs at junior high school. Consider locker.
Are you looking at
That's
that?
not mine.
Yeah, you're looking at the. we're looking at
Mine's
the-
way
Oh, okay.
zoomed out. That's
Are we
not
in
mine.
Section 4.
He's looking at
Of the official.
Yes.
That was already there.
Oh, okay.
That was already in what Michael put in as part of the data already
Yeah, I
collected.
think it's just stuff that got hammered in the groups.
Mhm.
Oh, so this is the one. Sorry.
That comment about the kids back there.
Oh, but they need
Snakes, need more
Snakes.
snakes. I don't see snakes represented in this. plan.
Yeah, it
It
didn't
must
show
have
up.
not been really-
Priority screen. If we do a tour, I want some of the beef.
Beef, breaded beef fingers?
You got it, buddy.
All you can eat.
That'd make it at lunchtime.
Actually, we used to do that. The board would stop at one of the buildings and eat lunch with the students.
You go and set it on chili day.
Oh,
Make
We
a note.
we could see if we could make that happen.
Food doesn't arrive when we do
Yeah, the kids love it.
Okay, so thematically then, are we okay with the ideas that Michael already put in? Obviously, and some of them are specific because the feedback was specific. we've got the presence of some type of tour, making it a board priority in some fashion without it being overly specified or defined at this point in time. So strike the word annual, right? And then kind of, reword a little bit of the phrasing with the creativity of stakeholders, but, and Michael's the wordsmith. I think what I'm hearing from what you guys have said is you like the idea of inclusivity with strategic partners and a task force of some kind that is limited in scope of time. That's probably more in conjunction with the bond aspect, but also very clear in parameters. And right, okay. Is there anything else? I'm just trying to collect back in so that we can report to Michael tomorrow, and then he's going to fix it and make it look like all the rest.
I don't know if this is up for debate or not, but I think you rephrased the whole target area as safe, healthy, and inspiring learning spaces.
Yes, I
really
did.
like that verbiage as compared to operational effectiveness and maintaining and improving facilities. I mean, I think it captures more what we're trying to get at with our school environments. Like,
it is more value focused,
right.
And the other one is, more straight shooting, like this is, but so there is a
Right,
difference in
right.
that,
Yes, and so I think somewhere in that I'm not sure what to call your document, but we'll call it your document.
It's a draft.
Your
It's a
document.
draft. It's a draft of multiple conversations.
You use the phrase like stewardship of existing spaces and investment in students and staff and community. I think that name change captures those things which exist on the format from Michael as well here. I think drawing that title into, or switching those titles out would be a clear articulation of what we're trying to accomplish here. Yeah.
Right, so are you talking about on target area 4 from the actual strategic plan, changing the title?
Yeah. So, and I just, yeah.
Who likes mine better?
I like,
I'm just kidding.
I like Kelly's, but I feel like this is more broad
Mhm.
to include athletic. I mean, hers is more about learning spaces.
Right.
This can be janitorial. I mean, this could be district. I mean, this to me applies district, and that would be a sub bulletin underneath this. In my opinion.
Okay.
Just, I mean, I love the language. I agree, but I think it would be, if you wanted that language in there, it would be a lower level.
Okay.
Other thoughts? We got one of each. Well, actually not, because I'll put myself in that camp, because obviously that's why I wrote it. I don't like operational because I think it's cold, and I think that it doesn't capture the janitorial spaces. We want to be safe and professional environments for those professionals as well, because they are the ones who work with all the things that keep our facilities safe. So it's just a difference in how to express value statement. It's not a sword to die on, but let's just hear from more people so we can, my feelings aren't hurt one way or the other, but let's just get more people to say.
Yeah, just
add that to safe, healthy learning, inspiring learning spaces.
To
and
like
maintenance
in
of
the spread
facilities.
into this.
Yeah, I think we all like what you said. We just want to be sure that applies
Across the board.
So if you can add a little, few words or whatever. Put it instead of operational effectiveness and add maintain and improve
Gotcha.
facilities.
Switch out a category within it. I understand what you're saying. Okay.
So change that title to exactly what you wrote. Just put it on the front end and take out operational.
So put on the end of your title and maintaining and improving facilities. It's hard to see both on your screen. Can't make that one pop up. So it would say, no, I mean, it's okay. What does it say? So I'll rewrite it.
Safe, healthy, and inspiring spaces.
Healthy, inspiring.
Learning spaces.
Yeah. And maintenance of facilities. Or maintenance of, and
I feel like improving doesn't, I mean,
improving.
it doesn't really need to be there.
Safe,
based
healthy,
after-
and
after Kelly
inspiring
just said all that.
learning spaces and
So
facilities.
maintaining.
Safe, healthy, and inspiring learning spaces and facilities.
Oh, that's fine.
Boom.
Got it. Okay.
Somebody hand them in a mic.
Just immediately got
Okay. Any other input? Okay. So I think we have enough to just be able to hear Michael. Now let's adapt that so that it works with what you've already created. Okay. Well, thanks for indulging in the exercise. I can't do what Michael does. And I'm not trained to do it in that way. So this was just another way of coming at it to try to spur discussion. So thanks for going on that ride. Okay. I think we're done with that. Are you guys okay with moving on then? Okay, new business. Now we get to make a decision based on our presentation from last week.
Starting, Paul, or are we just talking?
Well, as you know, we had 3 groups that presented to the board last week. ACI Baldwin, Hollis and Miller, and DLR Group presented to the board last week. The board is searching for an architect firm to help us move forward. And so tonight, hopefully, you're prepared to designate who that's going to be and make a motion to say we would like to move forward with this architect firm. Then we most certainly would start working on a contract with them. That contract, especially in these cases, would be reviewed by Brad Finkeldye, would review that contract.
Start. I thought ACI's presentation was strong. And I'll just say I'm a big Doug level fan. That's fun issue. He designed the PAC. I think it's great. I think their fee structure is slightly the most attractive of the 3. But somebody correct my memory if I'm wrong. I don't think they touted the in-house educational functionality as much as the other 2. So I would say that Doug and DLR in a time before they had such a thing were pretty responsive to our instructors' suggestions and came forward with progressive ideas about, look, we're doing pods these days. If you guys want to look at that, that's what happened with the PC and so on. But they don't, as I recall, have that built-in piece that I think some of us might find very valuable. I thought, is it Hollis and Miller? Is that correct? The least attractive to me of the 3, just my impression, I thought they were a little catchphrasy and not enough specifics for me. And I'm a big fan of DLR. I like that they, since we worked with them before, they have integrated more of an in-house educational piece. Very responsive. I think we've been pretty happy with them. I guess they would be my 1, and ACI would be my 1B. Like I'd be great with either.
I'm pretty similar to you. I think it must be a sucker for catchphrases. I really like the second group, the Hollis and Miller. But for me, what knocked them out was the idea that there's a fee that we have to pay up front that's not, contingent on them passing the bond. So that to me is so sorry. I really like that DLR for the same reasons as you like them. And I feel like they're a very known quantity to us in the sense that they've made mistakes and had errors and had things not go perfectly, and they've really owned them. That to me gives me a lot of confidence in security. And it doesn't mean that other people wouldn't, but we already did some known quantity for them. And so I'm with you also on like a 1A and 1B. I really that's what kind of tips it for me. It's DLR is the fact that they've had small things go wrong that they didn't charge us for stuff. So I'd be DLR.
I'll give my 2 cents. I wish we could take DLR and ACI and combine them and just bring them to the table. I was really impressed, and I think it's hard to overlook the amount of energy and put into the presentation. And I do think, based on if I understand correctly, the teams that were here are the teams that we're going to get and we're going to be working with, and that's where I maybe give the nod slightly to ACI based on just that
one time not having the history of being involved with what you guys have been. You know, I think ACI does have their Learn Studio that they speak to in this, that, you know, references 47 years of history and building educational and education design, and that's a pillar of the practice. So I don't know, it's a tough call for me. One question I would have, I guess maybe for Paul is, you know, if we go through this bond process, is Kevin going to be the principal? Will he still be part of their? I mean, are we basing a decision on these people? Because I think we really are more than we are the firms, to be honest. I mean, I think with all of us, we do business with people who are going to be working with them, do the logo on their truck. So I think that just needs to be taken into consideration, because that was just one question I had as I was processing that this weekend. Kevin's kind of a key piece of that team. And whereas I think what ACI done and his whole team were like,
it's a really good point. I was very impressed with the lady with ACI, and I felt like if we got through to construction, that might be the strongest piece as far as being on the ground and following through, making sure things are.
well, Dom as well, and I mean, yeah, I don't know, we could I mean, I could overstate it, and I don't think I need to. I guess those two are neck and neck to me, and I guess I'm concerned that I think if we don't have a lot of confidence that Kevin's a part of it, then I think it rises ACI to me.
So with DLR, maybe I misheard this part, but I thought they had mentioned that we would be signing a contract with them to go through 3 rounds of a bond issue that didn't pass the first time around, which both frightens me and comforts me in some ways that they'll stick with us. But I'm also thinking, if that thing doesn't pass the first time around or the second time around, we're still contractually obligated for 15 years from now to be. I mean, I don't know what the parameters on the contract are, but
it's like signing on with the realtor a little bit.
Yeah, it's like you just guarantee, and knowing that we're all going to step up this board at some point, how much contractual obligation we're going to have that would in some ways limit our ability.
We need to clarify that with ACI, but what to your point about ACI being a slightly friendlier, both ACI and DLR, to my understanding and my notes, would not charge us their planning fees once the bond passes and we move forward with the project. DLR is going to still charge us though for some of their expenses, not their profit or their fee, but their expenses and paper and those type of things, postage, travel reimbursements. I mean, that could add up. Whereas ACI was a complete, that wasn't part of their deal. Okay, so no.
Yes.
No, go ahead. Okay, I was just gonna see if Tony, and I want to make sure everybody.
No, I'm in
gets a
agreement
chance.
with what everybody said.
Okay.
Those are the 2 firms that stood out for me.
Okay.
And it's a toss up. So I was hoping that you guys would come here and say, oh yeah, there's a definite vibe one way or another, because either one of those firms I was impressed with. I was impressed with their presentations. I think they were fine people to work with.
Okay.
And we've had experience with both of them. So I think, I'm not sure if we can make a wrong decision here, but we've got to make a decision.
That's good.
Yeah, so
Good problem.
I want to make sure Susan has a chance to share her thoughts if she has.
Sure, it may be moot at this point. I might be the outlier here, but I really did like Hollis and Miller. I, catchphrasey or not, maybe they were, but I really was kind of conceptualizing their vision. I like that they focus only on education. I like that they have a full partner who is an education specialist. They talked a lot about designing for the future, and I just thought they were the most innovative and creative, I guess. But that aside, there was the financial issue. So I thought all 3 of them did a great job, and regardless, it's going to be a wonderful project.
I'll just echo exactly what Susan said too. That for straight up process, from what I heard last week, Hollis and Miller seemed like they had a superior technical process of getting stakeholder feedback, incorporating that into the design of the whatever plans come out. The only red flag is there, and maybe it all comes out in the wash as the same, but that upfront cost, again, not that it's the biggest upfront cost in the world, considering it's gonna be a multi-million dollar project, but having to guarantee us to be out some money, even if we don't go to bond for one, or if our bond doesn't pass, for instance, that does concern me. But again, it may shake out to being exactly the same within a day if they're 0.2% lower than somebody else's on the fees for the bond or whatever. So, but as far as straight process goes and what they were saying in that session, I thought they had the best approach. But to Tony's point, I'm going to be real happy with any three of these options walking out of here. So, but I guess if I had to put money on that, go with Holson.
Paul, can I ask you a point of clarification?
Sure.
I know Doug Loveland looked at us there at the end and said, if your bond doesn't pass, I'm not going to charge you anything. We think that applies to an initial
Planning fees.
Planning.
That's what I
Correct.
specifically
I,
asked.
right, and I believe what his statement was, we're not charging you a thing unless.
Because those
we
are
can
kind of
pass
different
the bond.
services. We're asking for an initial consultation on the general philosophy and so on. It's
Right.
not the same as assembling. So I just want to, I think that's how I understood it. I just, I don't want you to be surprised when they come in and say, whoa, now, just so you know, the planning.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I took his statement to be when Kelly asked me that question.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and one other additional, I don't know how important this is, but ACI is reporting a 93% bond success. And DLR group is 84%, but it looks like DLR group has done a few more.
Do a lot more.
It's a lot more.
So I'm a coin toss between the two, DLR and ACI. One thing I did like about DLR that they spoke to, I thought, in a more effective manner, was the communication piece on the back end of communicating and selling the bond. I felt like they did the best job of speaking to that piece of it. And I do think that in the climate that we are in, although I think that we are sitting in a very good position based on all the other advice that we've, the things that we've worked really hard to line up in the financial position that we're in. It appears as though we can do a lot without having to affect mill levy, which is exciting. And that's why we're talking about this in such a serious way. So though that may seem like a no-brainer for those of us who know what the needs are, it won't be in the community. And it doesn't mean there won't be support for that, but the challenge of communicating, why are we doing this? What is it for? Who does it serve? I will say that DLR inched ahead on that piece of it to me, because of the way they spoke to that. I don't know if 4 years ago, if that part would have been quite as important to me, but just out of recognition of the communication challenges that we're having, even on social media, even just as recently as today. That's something that resonated with me as a board member. But in terms of the work that they would do, if my fellow colleagues say, hey, ACI is where we're going, because it sounds like that's kind of the majority is split between the two. I'm comfortable either way. I just wanted to bring that one point up because I thought DLR did the best job of talking about that piece.
I'd like to comment in response to that, in support of it, I guess. I mean, if you look at our last bond, and this is largely the district and our work, but it was also DLR's guidance. There were a lot of elements for different vocal groups in our community. It wasn't all ball fields. It wasn't all performing arts. There was a balance that helped build consensus in this town that I may not care about those ball fields, or I may not care about the 600-seat auditorium, but, and that's important. And they were very good at kind of guiding that process. And speaking, what you said, Kelly, kind of sparked with me. This may not be accurate, and they might both argue about it. It feels to me like we're kind of, DLR is a bigger firm. It's more of like a conglomerate. There's more in-house services, more backing maybe, but maybe less personal attention with the slightly more mom and pop-ish ACIs. So that's a value judgment that we all have to weigh it.
to Kelly's point, Stephanie, that was her title and her sole role in the whole project is to help with the launch, which,
Yeah.
I wish they were here kind of to ask some questions that we're thinking of as we're talking about this as a group, because I'd like to know if ACI has that person on their team somewhere, or, is that service there. And then lastly, I mentioned it one more time, and I don't know how important it is to everybody, but from my perspective, it's pretty important, is if we did vote and the consensus was DLR, could it be with a caveat that Kevin has given us some sort of commitment that he's going to be here for that period of time, that we're signing up for 3 consecutive rounds with them, because they could completely have a wholesale person that they drop in our lap and we're like,
Right.
and then we're stuck with 3 consecutive rounds. And so I don't know that, again, the ACI thing, I don't know that 3 consecutive round thing, I don't know what that looks to like.
Well, so for me, just kind of talking through it, the 3 consecutive rounds, and then also the expense of travel and all that kind of stuff, regardless, versus somebody who we feel just as comfortable with,
Right.
and is said, hey, look, we're not charge a thing unless this thing passes.
Right.
With no other thing, that kind of makes me lean more towards this.
Yeah, if we put forward a bond, and having seen this happen in many other communities here, we put forward the bond, it doesn't pass.
Right.
We got all sorts of problems we need to deal with besides just putting a new architecture company here.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mismatch of what our priorities are, what we think they are, and what we're gathering from our community. So that's why that 3 attempts at a bond issue concerns me so much, that if we're already that off, I mean,
Yeah.
do we deserve these chairs in some ways? Like
Right.
you see this happen in many communities that have difficulty passing a bond, but it just that I don't know how long that extends on. I don't know what verbiage is in there. It could be a 20-year commitment that we're making for the district without,
And that just means, what that bond looks like, 4 years might go by and it might look like a totally other bond, and another board may change the whole scope. It just means the next time you do a bond, it's going to be with them.
That's my concern. Yeah.
Is that the case, or are we committed to trying it 3 times with them?
I just don't think they can't force the board to vote that way. And they,
I think that would be pretty hard for them to force that, but what they could do, come back, is if you guys go a couple years and say, let's try another one to do this, it's gonna be.
we're not jumping
DLR.
ship at that
You
point.
can't jump ship. to somebody
Yeah, that's
else
like
and
the
say,
rule.
let's
You're
try
gonna
something
have to
new.
sell your house for 3 weeks, then you take it off the market. When it comes back on, it's gotta be with that person, because you signed that for like 18 months or something.
Right.
I don't know. I think both of them will be do good, and I know the allegiance to DLR. I think the head guy on ACI was part of the DLR experience.
He was.
You guys have had, so I guess we're kind of getting DLR at a different version.
Getting there, a lot of the design vision from our last good project. Yeah. Not that who DLR has now may not be brilliant. We have worked with that. I'm gonna shift. Susan, if it comes down to ACI and DLR, does the fact that DLR bragged about their new full-time educators in-house, does that mean a lot to you?
No, I didn't have a real strong opinion between the two. You guys have talked about a lot of important points between ACI and DLR, but that didn't resonate with me.
Okay.
With
Well, that's
them.
good, because I thought that might be a big point particularly with you, that they had more.
I thought all 3 of them said they had educational consultants.
Okay.
So I'm sure ACI has access to that too.
I liked the build a bond exercise DLR talked about. I guess, so my first choice would be them, with ACI definitely a close second. And if the board is like, we want ACI, I'm going to vote with that. I'm not going to vote against that, just to be clear. I liked the ownership of the acoustic project, because that made me think they were going to work harder to impress us on this. You know, I kind of like when stuff like that happens, and maybe that sounds a little bit cynical, but I liked that I didn't have to ask about it, because things do go wrong in projects, and I want to know you can trust people to just shoot you straight when about communicating what things. So that was helpful to me. So there's that aspect of it, but you guys, all the things that you've said about ACI and the reasons for your comfort with them, I share. So
Do you feel like we can negotiate? One of the major sticking points for all this is some not to exceed X amount, blindly going into the expenses and that. Two hurdles that I feel like.
Yeah, they are.
You know,
Yeah.
I would think maybe if they knew to sway us, that they would maybe waive or work with us on those two issues. I don't know.
I don't know. I think they're so big. I think that's their, like, I think that's what they do.
Well, then maybe that's the advantage.
And maybe
working with
that's
the smaller guys.
Possible,
Right.
Kelly, I can't tell you that it isn't flesh down. But
No, but if that's the difference, you know, if everything else is equal, then just do the one you don't have to negotiate that with.
True. True. I guess I just feel that there's a little, from Paul's perspective, just a little bit of Doug is.
that is true. That is very true, though. I mean, yeah, guys, I gave you my ideas, but at the same time, understand, I'm not, this has got to be who you guys feel good about, who you want to work with. Don't worry about me. I think you're on the right track with who you're talking about. I think they're good. Both are good firms. I love Doug. Doug was great to work with on all of this. DLR did a nice job. I know all the stuff that DLR can bring to you. But I get where you guys are going. You're all on the right track. But here's the thing, I don't get to vote. And so in the end, you guys got to go with who you feel good. Mark, did you want to weigh in anything to the board on it? Because you will be working with whoever they decide.
I think you all made very good points. With DLR, the three vote or the three bond passages or opportunities. I know it's scary. I think that if it doesn't pass the first time, you get an opportunity to go at it again with someone who's already knows what you've done, what you've been through, and they're committed to that. Again, with Hollis and Miller, I was talking with Paul about this today. I am very concerned with their upfront cost. I didn't include that in my communication with you earlier, but that does concern me. I do value the in-house educators from the standpoint that they've got a perspective there. I missed if ACI mentioned that, I missed that if they have it too, I think that puts them on par with the other three. I don't think that there's a bad choice here. I think that you got a good one with DLR and Hollis and Miller. I think they just have a bigger reputation on this side of the state line. And ACI, based on their map, they've put together some really cool facilities too. So, like Paul said, I think you'll be fine with being in the three.
No, I'm still where I was. What do I know about this?
So
I do hear some of the concerns about DLR getting into something that is going to get out of it, right? Not being able to get divorced. But ACI, I think your analysis was great. It's a difference between a big, huge firm that has all this stuff in house and that's smaller. It's a toss-up.
So you guys can keep discussing, or somebody can make a motion to say this is it and see if it goes.
Because we didn't consult.
If you don't have to, no. if you want to keep to your timeline, the sooner you get this going, the better. But is it set in stone? You have to make it no.
Can we make a motion to go one direction with clarification on one or two items from that firm that we choose?
Sure, you can make the motion you want. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that would give us the option of revisiting it if those questions weren't answered.
We still have to approve the contract, right? I mean.
Yeah, I think
we still have to approve the contract.
So I think we're not
Oh,
signing
okay.
our wedding. We're not
Okay.
signing our
So we
wedding.
could come back and revisit it as the contract.
And I want to put something in context. I'm not trying to lord over that I've done this. Forgive me if it sounds that way. I just want to emphasize that if you go through a bond issue, it becomes a very personal, emotionally charged. You are really invested in that. For yourself as a board member, for the board as a whole, but really for the community. You don't move forward these things if you don't really feel like this is the best way for our community to move forward, to bring new people into the community, to have the things that we think our kids deserve that are as good as anything in the state, all that. And if it goes down, you're not going to want to go. You're going to want to retool it and go right. I just can't imagine saying, well, we tried and we're going to walk away and not do anything.
Yeah.
So I just don't see that as a big issue. And
So you see
I
it
may
as a
still
positive?
prefer ACI. I just don't see that 3 bond thing as it just doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Okay. It could be a positive.
And that said, I still don't.
All right, I'm gonna take the plunge and everybody just vote the way you vote. There's no hurt feelings. I move that we use DLR group. If there's not a second, it will die and we'll move on to something else. No harm done. It just advances decision making.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to use DLR group. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed?
Susan?
Susan? Hey, Susan?
Oh, God, you haven't heard anything.
I'm back. That I think I've been kicked off about 9 times now, but I always come back. So it's okay. I really don't miss much. I really don't. I'm able to pick right.
So what just happened is after we're discussing and discussing, so I said, okay, well, we'll just make a motion and no feelings hurt, just to advance the conversation. So I made a motion and Tony, right? Yes, I'm sorry. Tony seconded to go with DLR and then we voted. So I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to vote. We did all those in favor. That happened. So if you're in favor, and then anyone, are you in? So, and then we did opposed. So that's what happened. And then I realized you weren't there. So I apologize.
No problem.
Then
No
we're
problem.
waiting and we've not called the final count on that.
Yeah, not a problem. And it might be my end that I keep falling off and then I'm coming right back on. So it's all good.
I know that's really frustrating and I'm sorry for that. And just for clarification, is your vote in favor or opposed?
I feel like I'm willing to go with the will of the group. I don't have a strong preference on either. So yes, I'm in favor.
Okay, yes, ma'am. All right, thank you. So motion carries 6-1. Okay. All right. Thanks for hanging in, everybody. Board member input, co-op report.
All right. So I'm looking at the agenda from last time for highlights here. We have hired a new social worker that will start next year for Baldwin, as well as one in Wellsville. So that's good news. I mean, we posted it. I'm not sure we hired both of those yet. We are continuing to have trouble with getting like speech language pathologists, school psychs, PTs, OTs, all those very hard to come by professions there. So they're posted, but you know, anybody who has vague interest, tell them to go back to school because they could have like 10 jobs whenever they're done with the program. Other things on the horizon here is extended school year. We'll start, I think it's a 2-week session in June and 2-week session in July. So that'll start in a couple weeks here as well. Oh, and we have a board retreat next week. Where are you going? Oh man, to Wellsville. All the way to Wellsville. Yes, we're doing basically the same process of the strategic planning and honing it down to what are our 3 or 4 priority areas. So very similar conversation that we're having today, just from the co-op side. And there is a lot of overlap between like the social emotional piece, for instance, and supporting staff and those types of things.
Staying at the Sheraton or?
It's a
That's
one-night-
a shot at Wellsville.
It's a one-night affair. Hey, they're on the map. They got a Mexican restaurant there now. They're in great shape. Bakery. Great shape. But yeah, Tony, am I leaving anything? The big updates on?
No.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, that's coming up next. So yeah, that's it.
Do you guys talk about what State Board Representative Ma with this transition program of, and she said it's been particularly effective in special education. Is that the teacher transition program? Has that been something that you guys have had a chance to talk about, or?
Yeah, and so I'm going to follow up with her about
I thought that was so
Yeah,
interesting.
so
Okay,
we have had discussions the last couple of board meetings about having, basically bolstering our tuition reimbursement programs. So they can either pay for parents to go back to school to finalize a degree to become special education teachers, or there's a thing called a waiver where you can hire a general education teacher to teach in a special education setting off of license. You get a waiver from the state for that. If they enroll and complete a program in like a year or 2 time frame, we can potentially reimburse that as well. So we're exploring options for pretty aggressively raising that tuition reimbursement. I think here is, $500 or something a year or something, right? We're looking at more like 2,000, 3,000 or the full cost of the program, just so we can get people to stick around as parents for one, but also that we have kind of a hopper of individuals who are ready to step into some of those technical positions. So I'm definitely going to pick her brain about and Ma's brain about those programs at the state level to see if we can replicate them or just use their money instead of our money.
Well, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, and there's some interesting financial pieces you can move around to make it to where it's actually pretty well paid for by using those waiver programs, for instance. So there's some levers we can pull to make it a little bit easier that we don't have at the gen ed level, but still, yeah, they're big in our discussions. One of the things that's big in our discussion too is again, aggressively raising pay for our paras as well. We don't have a specific dollar amount yet, but for each dime, I think each dime that we raise an hourly rate costs something like $14,000 or something across the whole year for all those employees, because there's hundreds of paras across the co-op. So there will be some wage increases, which we're budgeting for, and it hasn't really impacted the amount of money for assessments for our district at this point. So it won't impact our local board any. It'll just impact that we should have more people showing up for paras more consistently, hopefully, with a wage increase.
Thank you. And good luck on your retreat next week.
Yeah, thank you much.
Miscellaneous. Anything have miscellaneous? Okay, just a really fast miscellaneous. Just want to continue to promote, and we're going to talk about this more during the summer in the area of some policy, but just keep it on people's radar. And in the meantime, just try to, positively say and encourage the chain of command. Our communications are so important, particularly when people are tired and stressed out. And if there are concerns, to please direct those to school personnel in an appropriate, respectful manner, starting with the teacher, the first point of contact, from there, the principal, from there, the superintendent, and if still not resolved, then the board. And because when we can resolve things in that way, it best serves our kids. I know that to be true, so I just want to continue to encourage that in the way we communicate with one another. Okay, superintendent's report.
So I just wanted to mention, each year, U.S. News and World Report comes out with a report on the best high schools in the country. And so they are judging you on the number of AP classes, the number of AP classes passed on testing, mathematics proficiency, reading proficiency, science proficiency, and your graduation rate. And then overall, how well are you getting kids ready for college? So with that, they come back with some factors, and it's on how we are ranked. So in the state of Kansas, we're ranked 27th out of 282, which gets us one of the best schools in the state of Kansas. 27 doesn't seem that high, but understand most of the schools in front of us are very large schools that have a lot more offerings than we can offer. For a 4A school to be up in that area is really something because of the amount of AP classes and college opportunities that were given for our size school. So a good share of those schools that are in front of us of those 27 are the Blue Valley schools, the Shawnee Missions, some of those bigger, the bigger schools that can offer a lot more of those opportunities. So we're ranked 27th there. The other one where we kind of have more recognition, and this will seem, we are ranked 4,663rd in the nation. Okay, which seems like, oh, okay, so, but you got to remember that's out of 17,843 that are ranked. That's not every high school in the country. That's of the ones that got a ranking. Not all schools get a ranking, but that's out of 17,000. So if you look at that, comparing across the country, that's a pretty good standing, even though somebody would say, well, you're ranked 4,000. It is when you compare to all of the schools that you're being compared to across the whole country, including academies and all of that you're going up against. So it is a good honor. They come out with this ranking every year. We've been ranked before. I think last year we were ranked also in the tops in Kansas and nationally. So it does say something for what we do. I know state assessments came out, and I know Jana sent those out. Jana said, well, they're not as good as we'd like them to be. I agree. But if you compare what our scores are to the state, that test is so tough. People don't understand how hard that state assessment is. It is made to make sure kids don't do great unless you really know your stuff. We're above the state average all the way up and down the line, except in just a couple of grade levels. We are above and sometimes way above the state average in that. So yeah, people look at that and they'll say, well, yeah, but you don't have, the rankings are 1 through 4, 4 being the highest, 3. And so originally, if you were a 2, that kid is at grade level. You're doing what is expected of you at 2. Well, that changed over time. No change in the numbers or where, but that changed. If you're not a 3, you're not proficient. Well, I really think that's garbage, but you can't just change it that way. I understand the goal is let's try and get every kid to a 3 and a 4 that we can. I get that. But then to go around and tell people, well, but they're not here, I think is not necessarily a true message of what we have here. So I do think overall, our kids are not doing as well as our hearts tell us we'd like them to be. But I think our kids are doing pretty well, which shows our teachers are doing a good job. So do we need to continue to improve? Of course. We need to do that. But anyway, just wanted to mention that about the U.S. News and World Report and about our state assessments. So.
Thanks, Mr. Dorothy.
Yep.
We have, before we start to wrap up, we have a personnel report to approve.
Yes.
We also have we have a resolution that we would need to formally make a motion on as well. I wanted to give Mr. Dorothy an opportunity to talk about that procedurally to see if we need executive.
If you need to go into executive session, fine. If you recall, last month, we made a couple of resolutions for intent to non-renew to notify teachers that we were going to non-renew them. A couple of them chose to resign. instead of go through that process, and the board has approved those already. One has not. So tonight, we really need to pass the resolution for the final notification on that to say your contract will be non-renewed. So we do have that. If you want to go in and we talk about it, we can. If not, all we'll need is Kelly will make a motion on the resolution to make the final notice.
I just didn't want to plunge into that if that wasn't where everyone's
Right,
comfort level was. Okay. Okay. So we'll have those two motions. Now, isn't it that I last time we voted to accept the resolutions, but don't I have to actually read the whole thing this time when it's the final?
Sure.
I believe I do. I think that's right. Okay.
Do that.
All right. All right. I move the adoption of the following resolution, whereas on the 18th day of April, 2022, the Board of Education of Unified School District 348, Douglas County, Kansas, by resolution duly adopted, took action to notify, and then I say the name too, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Took action to notify Emma Braun of the board's intent to non-renew her contract as a teacher for the 22-23 school year. And whereas the clerk of the Board of Education gave written notice to Emma Braun on the 20th day of April 22 that it was the intent of the Board of Education to non-renew her contract for the 22-23 school year. And whereas after extensive consideration and thorough discussion, the board has determined that the matter should be resolved as follows. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Unified School District 348, Douglas County, Kansas, Section 1, that the contract of Emma Braun be non-renewed for the 22-23 school year. Section 2, that the clerk of the Board of Education give personally or by United States mail Emma Braun a signed copy of this resolution. Then it says adopted by the Board of Education of the Unified School District 348, Douglas County, Kansas, the 17th day of May 22. There would need to be a second, just like always, and then a vote to move forward if that is the case. And if it is passed, then every board member will need to sign this. Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution as presented, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. I can grab a signature from you guys before you leave and we'll take care of the rest. Thank you. Yes, sir. Kelly's moved and Phyllis seconded to approve the personnel report. Oh, it was Tony. Pardon me. I'm sorry. Sorry. Kelly moved and Tony seconded. I'm sorry, Corey. To accept the personnel report as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Now we may adjourn. Bill moved, Kelly seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone. Meeting adjourned 9:57 p.m.